A
Ready.
1 and a 2. And hello and welcome to Nerds and Words, episode 64. I get to be your host today, Tim Allen 1337. And as always, we're joined together with the most interesting group of players in New World Aftershock. But here's a twist: is one of these members will not survive to the next week. Guess who? And put your guesses in the comments. Is it Moreland TV?
Oh, God, I hope not.
Is it Potion Shop TV?
I will be the final survivor.
Or is it Kerr?
Yo, easy win.
Regardless, we have it's been a relatively quiet week within gaming. As far as outside of New World is concerned, we all do obviously play in the same guild together. So we've got actually quite a bit to talk about as far as New World and kind of the state of the game, I'd say. So without further ado, I guess we could just set this up with like not to start it off maybe on a negative foot, but what do you guys think's like what's your biggest gripe with the state of specifically like bugs and stuff like that? I guess I'm looking at. But just overall, what is bugging you the most about the game right now?
Oh, for sure. My biggest bug that annoys the crap out of me is that the small star metal node gives the most resources and the big star metal node gives the least.
That's your biggest issue?
I was not expecting that.
Have you gone to Siege?
The biggest issue?
That's by far the biggest issue. I mean, there's everything else pales in comparison, so.
Wow.
No,
go ahead.
I don't know what my biggest issue is. I had to think about it a little bit more, to be honest. But there are a ton of it's like death by 1,000 cuts type of deal, in my opinion. And it'd be hard to press to say that this one or the other is completely ruining the game, because the game is so multifaceted as an MMO, but every part of the game has some type of cut like that, right? At least that's what it seems like to me.
I think that's a really good point. I was kind of feeling about that way last night and this morning. Is my biggest gripe about this game is how armor and damage and all that stuff works is a very close second. But I'm really shocked, and we talked about this quite a bit on the podcast, that the siege lag did not get fixed in the slightest. Like nothing is different. It is a slideshow through and through when you've got 50 people attacking and 50 people defending a point. It's extremely difficult to kind of call your way through that. And I really hate it. Really hate it a lot. But to the point that you were making, Potion, I really agree with the notion that there's a bunch of these little things, and when they're like, what's been happening, at least on our servers, we're on a really competitive server, and the mobs bug out. There's been really poor moderation within suspensions, and are they cheat? Is somebody cheating? Did somebody call somebody a bad word? Did Amazon just ban somebody? Was it a mass report? Is using the gem that does the most damage wrong? And so it's like all these things that are wrong with the game in a hyper competitive setting has turned into like this really weird toxic melting pot of pointing fingers at each other instead of just going, this game's fucking broken. And I can't believe that from closed beta to today, almost all of these issues have not only not been solved, but in a large way have gotten worse.
Yeah, I think that 1,000 cuts thing is pretty apt. I mean, for me, it's like I'll run into, one issue, it's kind of annoying. And, I'll run into another issue, it's kind of annoying. And then another issue, it's kind of annoying. And it all kind of builds up to the point where you get a little bit exhausted if you're playing the game all day and you're just running into this stuff. And really just makes you want to take a break and play something else, which is unfortunate because the game is still so new and there's still so much to do. But at the same time, half the things I'm working on right now, I mean, the discoveries we're making about gear calculations and stuff like that, it's not even clear what progression in the game looks like right now, or what I should be working on, or how to make my character stronger. There's a bunch of systems that are kind of halfway implemented. The PvP scaling is clearly something that they just knee-jerked to the last second and didn't properly test. even core systems of the game, like the way luck works. I read a dev post saying that they discovered an issue with the way that luck works that's making certain items like Fey Iron rarer than they should. And it's interesting that they said issue and not bug, because that is literally how the system is set up. And anybody who looked at it for more than 10 seconds would know that the way that they do luck rolls in this game makes no sense and is going to exclude items from the lower loot tier once people get better gear. So, like, saying that they've discovered an issue, it's like, what do you mean? Like, why didn't the person who made the system discover the issue as they were making it? It's the most obvious shit that you could ever see in your life. And so there's a level of kind of like amateurishness, or like 459 on Friday-ishness, something that's just going wrong with like the design portion of this game. And it's really, for the most part, I feel like it is mostly the design portion. Like, we've talked about this before, the graphics and the sound and the engineering. There's a little bit of netcode problems that I think is mostly seated on the new, probably just iScotland and Great Axe. But I mean, for the most part, it's crazy how well some parts of the game work. And then you look at the design portions and it's like, who the fuck are these people? Like, are these just like recent college grads and this is their first game and they just like, their uncle worked at Amazon? Like, what's going on here?
Yeah, like you definitely get that feeling. Like the audio seems really crisp, really good. Like the art seems really solid. Like there's a lot of good things like that. But when it comes to coding and when it comes to like the game design, those two feel like they fall short in a really, really big way. An example of like the coding issue would be like the musket uses the same base code as the rapier. And so, since the rapier uses the same basic code as a musket, I mean, if you go up and mine chop down a tree, and then you run with a rapier right afterwards, right? Your character actually holds it in their hand like a musket for a couple seconds until the servers catch up, and the game code realizes that you're not using a musket, you're using a rapier. So then all of a sudden, instead of doing this, your character goes, "Choo, I'm holding a rapier. I'm just kidding." And it's like little weird amateur like mistakes like that, like. Ideally you would code it, as two different weapons, and so that should never happen. Even if you do have a server lag, it's just like a lot of weird things like that. Yeah, I don't know. It's like it's not one thing though. Like it's not one thing. Like this is like let's take crafting for example, right? If you take crafting, like. You cannot craft properly in the game right now because the engineering buff that you get from towns doesn't apply to your character. As soon as you like teleport or respawn or anything like that, it just resets it. So the only way you can actually make it work properly is by deleting your house and abandoning it and buying a house skin. That's the only way you can make it work properly. Which
Wow.
which is crazy. And then it only works until you teleport or die again, and then it's broken. Or if you relog, it's broken again. So, and before that, like there was 3 other bugs that they fixed this week with crafting. So it's like that's a huge part of the game. A huge part of the game is crafting. Like another huge part of the game is luck and like getting items that are worth something, right? And to see that luck is broken for chest, and they fixed that this week, but then they break the quantity drops. And then who else is to say what else?
Oh yeah, bugged? The economy will never recover from these refining drops. They've absolutely they might as well remove T3 and T4 refining mats from the game after last night's patch or 2 days ago's patch. There's no coming back from what they did. It's actually crazy, dude.
No idea what they were thinking.
Yeah, it's just like that. It's just like one thing after the next. There's something else I was going to say. Like another thing is like towns. When you go to a town, you own a town, you only get half the taxes from a town. That's we look at the crafting. That's a game breaking bug. Now towns, you only get half taxes, so you can't afford to keep running your town. It's just a money pit. Because it takes taxes, and so like even though we have First Light, which is arguably one of the best territories you can take, it's always money negative. Our taxes are greater than the money we pull in a week. And so I don't know. It's just like so many different oversights like that.
And that's so discouraging too, because you've got a whole guilds, and you're trying to establish like a local identity and build up an economy outside of, just Everfall or Windsward. And the way they've got it set up right now, there's just no reason to set up outside of those two cities. And so every other town's going to end up being a ghost town.
Mm-hmm.
And like the idea of having certain towns being the place to go for certain crafting or whatever, like if you can't even maintain your own city and pay the bills by, why are you going to invest in a city and get it built up and establish a reputation from that city when it's not even possible to profit off of it?
Right.
Yeah, I found the whole tax thing extremely discouraging, especially with the amount of work that really actually goes into it, especially in the early days.
And the biggest thing here, like we came into the launch of this game expecting it to be very unfinished, and the copium was, well, once the game's launched, these issues will be very flagrant and they'll be forced to crunch down and fix them. But we've gotten two major patches since the game has launched that have essentially done nothing or made the game worse. And there are glaring day one launch issues, like the fucking fact that the tier 5 Azoth staff is broken and you can't do the last tier of portals. That's a major piece of in-game content that we just don't have access to, that we did have access to in beta. And it's funneling everybody into the same 4 or 5 elite POIs. So now you've got 60 unflagged people grinding on top of each other, trying to get tags on mob kills. And like, it's just the whole quality of the experience for everyone is being dragged down by these issues, and none of them are getting addressed.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then like that's not even touching on the data that we've found out recently about like gear just not scaling in terms of defenses. Like that right there is that right there is the biggest thing for me, because it's like, okay, so we get to the end game. What is the end game? The end game is grind for watermark by killing at, like Morrow said, 3 or 4 selective spots that aren't PvP forced. And then you think like, okay, well, what's the point of that if only my weapon damage scales, right? So like if I get better armor, if I put in the time to get the void bent armor from crafting, et cetera, it's not going to do anything because it's basically going to have the same effectiveness as tier 2 faction gear, right? So it's like,
yeah, it's a PvE upgrade only. And like,
exactly.
That's another thing, right? It's like, who cares about the PvE in this game? If there was some meaningful in-game PvP where we actually felt like we needed to gear grind because there was some boss that, we were getting gear checked on or something, maybe. But right now it's like, I don't know, dude. It just, the motivation to progress in PvP or PvE, just, in PvP it doesn't exist, and in PvE it's not rewarding to progress. So what are we doing?
Yeah, and I do want to like clarify that, like, we want a good reason to play the game. Like we're big fans of New World, and we've been looking forward to it for a very long time at this point.
Yeah.
And it's just kind of it's more of like the realization that what we waited for is still not really ready yet. And I think for me, the main thing that I've come to realize is that with the way they've coded the game, they're not ever going to fix all the bugs, because they've inherently coded the game in like a amateur like band-aid, like, put duct tape on the leaky pipe type approach. And we saw that with BDO, with how they dealt with stuff, but this time it's with coding, and that's almost worse of an issue in a way, because that means you're going to keep having all these issues that we have today are going to reoccur in like 3 months from now, 6 months from now, a year from now. They're going to do some big patch, and half these bugs will come back out of the woodwork because they're doing band-aid fixes instead of a core fix for it.
I think the most staggering example of that is the resilient bug, because right now, they had the same bug in closed beta, and this is something that's been documented and reported by hundreds, if not thousands, of players at this point. And it's the same bug with 150 Constitution, and they somehow managed to fix 150 Constitution without fixing resilient, even though it's the exact same bug. And like, I can't imagine the process by which that even occurs. The only thing that I can really think of is like if they actually went back and added some weird band-aid to the Constitution perk where they like the dev who was in charge of fixing it couldn't figure out why it was bugged, so he just like made you take 10% more damage in addition to reducing 10% damage so that would even out. Like he just clearly didn't solve the root issue because the root issue still exists for resilience. So like I can't imagine what kind of fucking duct tape is on the code around crit damage and damage reduction in general right now. But if all these separate parts of the game can break in separate ways and they're not even talking to each other and there's not even any quality control to check these things, then who knows what else is broken that we haven't even discovered yet. It really is like BDO all over again.
A good example of how that would easily break would just be like, let's say in a year from now, they want to say, hey, these perks we designed originally were trash. We're going to rework that perk and make it slightly different. And then they go back and rework some of the base code. Well, that invalidates the Band-Aid code, which then means the damage mitigation comes back magically. And the players would just have to test and figure it out and then be like, oh, well, I guess we have another 3 months of, playing around with damage mitigation again with this.
Yeah, some different dev who doesn't understand what the Band-Aid was the first time, doesn't, something that's not commented properly, and he's like, why is this here?
Why is there bonus 10 damage to players on this?
Yeah, and then once he gets rid of it, it breaks all over again. Yep, that's exactly what's going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and like the biggest thing... Oh, my bad, go ahead.
No, please go.
Well, the biggest thing with this, it's like, this isn't even like a leaky pipe. This is like your fucking roof is falling in. Like if you have your game is a brand new game and people's armor and gear isn't scaling and the DP isn't doing what it's supposed to be doing, bro. Like in what world does it, like, should a 300 DP, like 300 armor T2 piece of gear have more effectiveness than a 1300 armor piece of light gear that's T5? Like it doesn't make sense. It's weird.
Yeah, very weird. Very weird. And I think that, the stuff with armor right now is really just the result of them not being able to figure out PvP scaling in the beta and just throwing something together that was untested in between open beta and launch. And I think that's what we're seeing now.
Makes a lot of sense too, because obviously they want to maintain some type of equal playing field. And like it just seems like they did it in the most roundabout way possible at this point.
I was always afraid that the testing of this game at 60 was like fairly non-existent. Like they had the alphas going, and I can't speak to what was happening on the alphas because I literally don't know. But from my perspective, I'm like, what if they just like weren't paying attention at all to like the 60 balance and all that kind of stuff? And it seems maybe they did, and then like they fucked with the scaling at the last second, and it threw it all away. But I've always had a pretty big concern on what this game's going to look like at 60, and a lot of us in Aftershock are having to like roll different sets of gear and stuff, and from the things that we found out yesterday, and kind of play the game differently in ways I think quite honestly a lot of people didn't want to be forced into. Like the whole beauty of light, heavy, and medium was to have like all these interesting trade-offs and stuff. Instead, it's really just like, hey, if you want to be more tanky, you can move less. Like the trade-off to me just kind of it is negated in my opinion by the fact that it doesn't scale with the actual gear.
Mm-hmm.
Even though it does technically work, it works linearly instead of like exponentially, which I assumed would be the intent, because this having T2 gear work better than the most expensive shit is ridiculous. So.
And again, I just have to go back to like I want to spend time in the game. Like it's fun running around in New World, and like I'm just in a field right now gathering some hemp, and it's not a really exciting task, but I enjoy it because the world's beautiful, and like I see this other guy running around here who looks like a wizard. Like we're competing over different bushes and stuff like that. Like I don't know, it just feels like immersive, right? I want to spend time in the game world. Like the art side is just so hard carrying right now. I want to be playing New World, but it can't just be just a pretty picture, so to speak.
Yeah, the look and the feel of the game is definitely what carries it. And I mean, like we said before, that's the hardest part to get right. I think the frustrating part about all the things we're discussing is that they are easy fixes. and they're easy mistakes to avoid to begin with, and that almost makes it worse to some degree.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it makes it way worse. Like if the hard part of this game was dog shit, I don't think any of us here would be invested in it whatsoever. We'd just be like, oh, here's another one of these, and that would be that. But the fact that and maybe it's like the same trap that we fell into with BDO, right? Like here's this really beautiful, fun, interesting, dynamic game with all these different parts to it. But man, they're just missing some of this like easy stuff. Like maybe if we just
Surely
wait long
they'll
enough,
fix the easy
surely they'll
stuff.
fix it.
Yeah.
And I don't know. Forgive me if I'm repeating myself, but it also bears repeating. I lost a shitload of faith in them with the patch that they came out with. Both of them, actually, but the most recent one, the launch patch and the most recent one, and how they fucking absolutely decimated the crafting market and the marketplace in general. I have no idea how to make money now. It's so weird.
It's pretty rough. Yeah, I had a whole strategy that I spent 3 days figuring out, and then that patch just kind of gutted it. So
anything that has anything to do with resources basically just took a complete dive because everybody's out there.
Converters are pointless now. Faction token grinding is pointless now. I mean, refining is all flattened and brain dead. There's just very few opportunities left.
And it's a confluence of issues too, right? It's it's Azov staff, so everybody's put into these things. It's this eye level thing and luck that doesn't work perfectly or maybe even as intended. So now, everybody's kind of funneled into these same areas, and then some bonehead has the idea to just put a 10x multiplier in the on the refining mats, and it's so many things coming into one that's making it so much worse than a bad idea on its own.
Now, I actually want to jump into the luck debate a little bit because I actually don't think it's that bad from at least from the luck design standpoint. I think the item drops for particular items are really messed up. But I think the luck factor on things is actually I think it works pretty well.
Like for harvesting or for killing mobs?
Like if you're killing mobs for loot drops, I'm not familiar enough with it to really comment. But for at least luck in regards to
God bless.
like gathering stuff, like in terms of gathering stuff, it's been very clear. Like if I get more rarity, then Fey Iron drops like candy from iron. But if I don't have much rarity, then Fey Iron is extremely rare, and so then I'm focusing more on the base resources.
Well, there's additional issues beyond that. So yeah, how much mining luck have you generated so far?
So I have 2 basic trophies and a minor trophy, which is 1,500 total. Plus I could use a food buff, and the food buff has 1,700. Thank you, Tim. And then
you got the full set of mining gear as well.
I think I've got the 2,000 now, actually.
And you're still getting Fey Iron with all that gear?
Oh yeah. Because iron, the way that they have designed it is that each item has like a rarity drop, and if you get more luck, you get more of that rarity drop. There's no way from iron you can ever start getting a blue or purple item. I at least from my experience, you just can't get them.
Well, you can surpass the loot table for an item if you have too much luck. So I thought that Fey Iron was one of these items, but maybe I'm wrong. But if you get too much luck, basically like your luck roll happens between 1 and 10,000, and if you have like 70% luck, then it bumps up your rolls by 7,000. And if the Fey Iron loot table is between 2 and 4,000, you just eclipse that and you can't get Fey Iron anymore. You can only get things that are higher in the loot table. There's like different chunks of the loot table that you have to land in. And luck, instead of increasing the value of your rolls, it increases the minimum and maximum. So it like moves you along this bar.
It's like gear score.
It's a very weird.
Well,
it's like a very weird system that they've set up for it.
So
it causes like a lot of weird multiplication to happen for both high and low mats.
That's true if you're looking at it from a global perspective, but false if you're looking at it from an individual gathering perspective, like an individual item. Because iron starting point is like a 0 or 1,000 or something, right? So it's not possible to get enough luck to actually get into the next tier. And the same thing is true when you're gathering star metal. Star metal, you start off at your starting point on that luck bar that you're talking about, that video starts off at like the purple tier, and so that's like a 0.1% drop rate. But if you get more rarity, it goes up. So your starting point changes based on what you're gathering, and based on what you're saying there, your starting point changes. And so it's not really possible for star metal ever to drop like a cinnabar, for example. You can't get it. I mean, I'm basically effectively maxed out. I mean, you can get maybe an extra 1,000 or something, but you can't get any more. Like every time I go and hit like star metal, I almost always get like the purple stuff, like every single time. Like every time I go to iron, I get like 5 or sometimes like 7 at a time. So the quantities are like massively increases, but I never get a tier up. Like, and I'm not getting less iron either. So I think
I wouldn't expect you to get less iron.
Yeah, so I guess like going back to what that is a chart that kind of assumes you're looking at everything globally, and then they position you at different start points on that luck chart in order to like, and that's different items, if that makes sense. So if you're looking at game code,
I would think that luck should just like make you that percentage more likely to get that item. Like that's how luck intuitively would work.
Yeah,
that's not what it does at all.
Oh yeah, 100%. That's how it works.
That's not what it does at all. When you start at a 0% chance to get an item, and then you unlock the potential to get that item by getting a certain amount of luck, and then by getting too much luck, you start to eclipse part of that bar.
That's
and
just
then
inherently
lose.
False. That's just not true. That video, when they say that, is wrong. You cannot get enough luck to make that happen.
And how do you know that it's wrong?
Because I'm basically maxed out on mining luck. You can't get more than mine. Like you can get like you can get like major trophies, right? So if you got 3 major trophies, you would have an extra 1,500 plus food, which is 300. So you could have 1,800 more luck than I have. And all my mining gear right now is like 4.8, 4.4, 4.4, 4.5, a straight up 5%.
I understand. You have a lot of luck. So what's your argument?
Still gets Fey Iron.
I still get Fey Iron. I don't get less Fey Iron.
Just because you don't eclipse the entire bar of Fey Iron doesn't mean you're not cutting into it. So
I'm getting more. Every time I get more, I get...
You're not listening to what I'm saying, though, dude. You're just talking over me. So if you listen to what I'm saying, let's say that Fey Iron has a chunk of like, I don't know, 10,000, or not 10,000. Let's say it has a chunk of 5,000 that you can get on that bar. And let's say it starts at 1,000 and ends at 6,000. This is just an example. So I don't know what the actual value is, but even if you get so much luck, so you're at what, like 7,000 luck? So let's say the range for Fey Iron is 5,000 to 10,000. You can, if you're at 7,000, you're missing out on that 5 to 7K window, even if you're still in the 7 to 10K window.
Yeah.
So you would actually get more Fey Iron if you reduced your luck by 20%. Again, these aren't the right numbers. I'm just making this up. But in theory, there are items that you have to target with specific values of luck, and all of this is hidden, instead of it just being like you're 70% more likely to get the item. Yeah, that's why I think it's weird.
Yeah, that might be like true in some theoretical world, but it's not. I'm telling you, I play with it. Like it doesn't work that way. I'm telling you,
I've looked at the code.
I'm telling you, when you get more Fey Iron. Like I've playtested. It's not really hard to playtest. Like you go put on a pickaxe that is 9%. Of course it's hard.
You would need a massive sample size to verify or disprove.
I go out on one mining trip, I get 200 Fey Iron with my regular gear. Right? I put on my if I change over to my pickaxe, I get like 220. Like it's not like it's that hard to tell.
Okay.
Like I mean we're going off like
it's not worth arguing about, to be honest.
Yeah, but I just don't think that like we're putting all our trust into one guy's video, right? And we're not looking at actual playtesting. Like you have to get your hands on it. It's just armchair like arguing, you know, like I'm looking at a piece of paper and it says the game's fun. Versus like actually playing the game. I think
looking at the source code for the game is a valid source of information.
Yeah, I'm saying is like that source code, that little bar that they have there is how they put you at different starting points on that bar in order to give you your item. And that's just how they coded it. it's a strange way of doing the drop pool, but that's how they did it. So your starting point, your starting luck, so to speak, for star metal will be like 1 million. And so that means that you'll go from like 1 million to like 1 million, like, I don't know, like 7,000, right? And so then you get way more of the purple chunks because you're on star metal. But then you have to go up to 1,500,000 or 1,500,000, and that's the starting point for Orichalcum. And so there's no way you can get another 500,000 points in luck to get you to that point, right? It's just not possible.
Sure. Yeah, that wasn't really what I was talking about, but again, I don't really feel like it's worth arguing.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think it's really, really easy if you just go playtest it a little bit. You'll be really surprised how like inaccurate that video is.
I mean, I've been mining too, but anyways, what's the next topic?
Thank you for joining us for episode 64 of Nerds and Words. We are out of time. How about something? I don't know. I definitely probably shouldn't have started this on a negative foot.
Yeah, well, it's gonna be easy to be on negative the entire thing.
Yeah, so let's try to shift it here a little bit. What's something that you have been enjoying over the past week since we last got together here?
The crafting, for sure.
Okay, go ahead, take it.
Yeah, I've had a huge blast. You know, the world is enjoyable. The main storyline, trash. The side storyline, trash. You know, half the, like, not half, but a lot of quests are bugged and stuff like that. And I've been really enjoying just going around and gathering stuff, and you get to see these little nooks and crannies that some little artist was like, oh, I can make this waterfall here, and we'll place this deer running by, and like, I don't know, like, you get to see like this handcrafted environment that, and it's really like the selling point of the game in a big way, is the combination of the beautiful environment that you can just go out and chop down a tree in it, you know. And so I've been going through and doing a lot of that. I tried getting 200 engineering, which I'm done on that now. And
you have or haven't?
I have. I'm done on 200 engineering. I got 150 weaponsmithing now.
Wow.
Like I have 200 in logging, mining, harvesting, skinning, woodcutting, leatherworking, and smelting. And I don't know. It's just like it's fun to kind of go through that and just accomplish it. It reminds me a lot of RuneScape, like where you have these like little, you know, self-decided goals. Like I want to get 45 mining for coal in RuneScape. I want to get 70 mining so I can start mining mithril or whatever it is. And it reminds me of that, where you have like all these little self goals where you're trying to get to next tier to craft your own ammo, maybe, or get to next tier so you can craft like the like Val wanted to go for 200 armor smithing so he could craft himself some really cool armor. And I feel like that where you get to kind of pick your own goal is what really helps the game shine. But yeah, definitely been enjoying the open world and crafting a lot, and just like the whole experience there, really sinking my time into that.
How about you, Kerr?
My favorite part about it has probably been the wars. Because it's kind of funny or nice just to see how like different groups tackle the wars differently. Even though like obviously we have the meta, right, and what's strong is strong, but like there's like such a stark difference between the way every guild handles their sieges. So
Yeah.
like being able to merc in and like watch and see and how everybody else coordinates has been pretty fun, honestly. Even though, you know, a lot of the times if you're helping an ally, there's a lot of disjointment, so it's not as it doesn't run as smooth as you'd like, but that's probably my most favorite part.
Yeah, I think I want to echo that. Even though I get caught up in all this stuff every once in a while, I still the kind of how the meta and the 50v50 again, just ignoring the slideshow thing. But I've spent the past 12 hours or so pretty nonstop, outside of a little bit of sleep, trying to come up with a comp for us that, you know, we can work around in, you know, basically a rough draft, because we were flying by the seat of our pants, and it was working for a long time. And hey, we need some more life staffs. People who show up on life staffs. And now we're starting to introduce some structure into it, or at least the very bare minimum of it. And so, Ethereum kicked their ass pretty good, and they continue to do so. And we gotta sit up straight and watch some VODs and kind of dig into it. Obviously, the competitive nature of the server, everyone gets a little frayed over it and stuff. But for the first time in a server we've played on, we are the complete underdog. I think we have the lowest amount of players, the lowest amount of guilds, definitely the lowest amount of competitive guilds. And so we kind of have to, we have nobody to really strap onto. We've got to do it ourselves. So, there's a lot of work with the 50v50 focus in front of me specifically. And I'm just starting to scratch the surface of it. I've got a long way to go, and it's going to take a lot of organization, but it's a really fun, this is what I like about the game, believe it or not. So I really want some of this shit to get fixed, but even if it doesn't in the short term, which I assume lag within, when there's 100 people on one point will not be fixed. There's still a lot that we can learn, a lot that we can improve on, and I think a lot of fun that we can still have too. So
I actually think that a lot of the issues with war are sort of side effects of other issues in the game that are also not getting fixed. Like, the amount of lag that we have in war right now is basically one of the biggest things is the prevalence of Ice Gauntlet. So if you did two things, right? If you just nerfed Ice Gauntlet, which everyone knows it needs to get nerfed, even Ice Gauntlet users will admit, and then B, fix Resilient, because right now Resilient is artificially reducing the time to or increasing the time to kill by pretty much everyone in the game by 25%, and that's a massive balancing issue. If you just fixed Resilient and suddenly everyone dies 25% faster, that's way less people casting, that's way less people taking damage, way less calculations, way less turtling. Like, the problem with Siege right now is you have 100 people that take fucking forever to die unless they're in light armor. If people are actually dying, it's not nearly as laggy, right? Like when we're doing those little skirmishes off to the side, hey cat, then it's not it's not nearly as bad. So it's like once they start to fix one or two of these issues, I feel like it'll have a cascading effect where a lot of other issues will be massively better. But they just need to get the fucking ball rolling. Like 2 major patches and nothing's happened. Just start doing things, and I think the game will become massively better. But I agree, like the PvP and the politics part of the game is super enjoyable right now. Like even the internal politics of just trying to hold the guild together and trying to like keep Tim from ripping our allies' heads off. And like it's been so fucking like fun to have a game where like PvP and politics actually matters and like people get heated and the stakes are high. And it's just been a while since I've had that experience at a game where I'm actually like invested and I care about the outcomes. So I'm definitely enjoying that a lot.
Well, sometimes I have to freak out so you can turn your stream off and actually look at the fucking Discord and help us run the guild.
Just DM me, bro.
Fuck you. How about that? rip my own leadership off.
He has remember
when I told
DMs?
you to loop me in on diplomacy 30 times and you still haven't done it, and then you complain that I'm not participating?
What do you think that fucking group chat we made for you is for?
What, but you're still like running your mouth about our allies and stuff, or like throwing salt at leaders of other guilds instead of passing it on to me. So what am I supposed to? How am I supposed to get more involved?
It's literally
give me some specifics.
That's literally not true. You were clumping 2 specific situations.
I'm ready.
What an appropriate time to bring that up.
Throw me a task and I'll get it done, Tim.
What an appropriate time to bring that up. It's such a pleasure. Thank you so much. Kerr, would you like to help run the guild? I have an opening.
Damn, dude. I don't know. That's when Moro would start doing his thing, though, as soon as you count him out.
Apparently.
I've been the shadow GM of this guild from the start. Been holding.
Okay, this is an Arsha. That was 3 years ago, dude. You have to do something in this game too. Okay, fucking anyway. Jesus Christ. We'll get you a nice spreadsheet to look
Listen,
at.
I'm just a minion in this whole process. I don't have anything to say here.
I just heal people, bro.
I'm just trying to figure out how to swing a hammer and hit mobs. How am I supposed to hit people with this? This thing's fucking slow. I
What's
have
your favorite
no idea.
weapon?
We were trying to fucking talk about positive things. I'm happy you're enjoying watching me burn guilds down and shit, Moreland. That's excellent feedback. Thank you so much.
Yeah, it's a good challenge for me to try to prevent you from destroying the limited alliances we have with the 2 remaining yellow guilds.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Kurt, I can't fucking remember what day it is. Did you say what your favorite part of the game was?
Yeah, dude, the siege.
The siege. Okay, great. So what's
And
next? Somebody else fucking pick this up.
What is your favorite weapon, and why is your favorite weapon?
That's a good question. So, no, I got a better question. In a vacuum, let's say they never released Ice Gauntlet Warhammer or Ice Gauntlet Great Axe. What would your 2 weapons of choice be?
Fire staff and fire staff.
I've never played another weapon. I don't know.
Yeah,
Dude,
that's why it's
the game would
interesting.
be so much better if they did that. That's crazy to think about. I'd probably go spear.
Yeah.
Honestly, I think I would be a spear user if it wasn't for Great Axe and Ice Gauntlet. I think it would actually be pretty legit because fights would be a lot more skirmishy and a lot less, AOE based. There'd be a lot more like kind of micro breakout fights rather than everyone just clumping. So yeah, I think spear would be pretty fun. And then I don't even know what I would do for my secondary. I'd have to think about it. It would be a meaningful choice though.
Well, the most powerful weapons in Siege would be fire staff and healing. But I think overall it would definitely make a huge opening for like hatchet, make a huge opening for, like you said, spear to be a little bit more viable.
I don't know about spear, but I don't know. My favorite weapons outside of Great Axe and Ice Gauntlet. I'm excited. I'm picking up a hammer. I'm excited to play around with the hammer a little bit. I'm like drastically changing up my build for the next couple of sieges. I actually played Fire Ice Medium yesterday in the 2 wars with Min Max. I was kind of taking that opportunity to not run a war and just kind of see if I could play this different play style. It didn't go well. I don't really want to be a caster. I've never been a caster. They've got sledgehammers and fucking great axes in this game and heavy armor. So I should probably strap some of that on and just scream at people to follow me, because that's what I genuinely enjoy in Siege. So I think I'm gonna, since open world PvP doesn't really matter right now, I can just run around and a 300 con setup or whatever and not really have to worry about somebody beating me open world or trying to 1vx, because everyone's nut cupping with 20 or 30 or not flagging up at all. So having a kind of a focused group PvP build and not having to swap back and forth in the state of the game right now is pretty viable. So I don't know if I'm going to run Great Axe or Ice Gauntlet with my hammer, but that's definitely what I'm going to be taking a look at now. As far as fun, it was actually, even though it was annoying as shit when Stockfish was sniping at us with his fucking 600 gear score musket or whatever the fuck that thing was, that was actually really fun.
Yeah,
because we had to dodge around the rocks and stuff, and we really don't have anybody with a musket, so we had Pistoliers, one of our only musket boys. So he came out and got into a sweaty sniper battle and was it was cover fire and stuff. And because if you don't have a musket, you have to wrap all the way around to where this guy was standing, and it's all open area, and you literally can't reach him with a fire staff or anything else. And so you really had to answer it with a musket. So I think having a musket in this game can be interesting and dynamic, but I'm excited
for open
to
world.
stun
I think
people.
it's awesome. I just don't think there's enough cover in Siege. Every time I see Stockfish in Siege, I just left click him and he goes down.
He was yelling at me after the end of that war at 4 p.m. at Min Max. He came up to me in town. He's like, "Bro, why are you sending people after me? Why you sending why you sending your goon squad after me?" I'm like, was not shot calling. I didn't send anyone anywhere.
It's
so I'm
just
like, I thought
me,
that was
dude.
Morley. Yeah, I thought that was
I
Morley.
end on him and Ice Shiny so hard every time I see them.
Okay. Well, it worked. He's definitely affected.
It definitely works with Stockfish. Ice Shiny gets away from me, but Stockfish dies every single time.
I watched one. I've been enjoying watching other people's VODs too, right? Like I've watched some of Virium VODs. I watched. It may have been TC. I forgot who it was. But just watching how other people kind of move and their little internal banter and shit talk and stuff like that. I've done a couple nights of like public VOD reviews, and it's given me a lot of information, a lot to think about, and stuff like that. I've really been enjoying that. I've got a lot to learn. A lot of these guys have been playing a long time. God Complex played alpha like a lot, apparently. I read in a Discord. I didn't know that was a thing. So we're up against some pretty stout competition here. These guys have been playing together for a long time. So
I think God Complex might be going yellow, bro.
Yeah.
Yeah, they got shut out of the purple Ethereum politics. I don't know if they're going to be staying in that faction. We might get some rebalancing happening here soon.
Be nice to have some changed up fights.
Yeah.
I don't know. We bring 50 to wars, so we just have to get better. I mean, it's the top and bottom of it.
It's been crazy actually. Like on the topic of weapons, how the meta has shifted from week 1 to week 2. Because I went into week 1 with Great Axe Hatchet, and I was like, I brought the Warhammer to our first couple sieges, and it was just absolutely not needed. Like I got way more out of having a hatchet and having a second life. And once we started fighting like this, the last few days, once everybody in the server pretty much switched to fucking heavy armor Ice Gauntlet, and with aggression bringing 18 healers to the siege, like suddenly Hatchet is just completely worthless and Hammer is completely on again. So it's kind of been crazy to see how quickly that swaps, with Hammer as a secondary going from being nearly worthless to being basically mandatory now. I don't think I'm ever bringing a Hatchet to siege again after seeing how strong healing and turtling is right now.
Well, isn't there a disease where Hatchet prevents 20% healing?
It's just a thankless job, though. It doesn't feel good to use. But it is, I think, very, very important, like you said.
Yeah, that might be good. I haven't played around with that too much. That might be pretty good on the clump. I don't know if that's going to get you any more kills in the back line, though.
So we can talk about the comp that we're putting together, but I think there's a small place for Hatchet, and we're having some people pick it up, actually. So I wouldn't abandon it quite yet.
I also do think that one of the things that we kind of lack on in terms of like our siege compositions that I see a lot of other the guilds that we've gone against pull off fairly well is the deployment of cannons near points. So we haven't exactly focused too heavily on that, and we also don't defend them when we do place them. So that's one of the things that I feel like we could get much better on, and it would improve a lot of those like slideshow ball fights. Just being able to have those cannons like just a little bit offset from the point and just able to rain in, sort of like some of the guilds do pretty well.
I think we are better at that when it's just Aftershock. A lot of the sieges we've had in this last week, we've only been able to bring 20 people.
Yeah.
And so the macro has not really been, in our control. It's going to be interesting. We've got a fight tonight where God Complex says they're not bringing any other purple. So we should just get a 50v50 guild versus guild. And I think that'll be a pretty good fight. And it'll be a proper realignment to see where Aftershock actually is. Because I think our last 5 or 6 fights, they've all been mixed with other guilds. So it's going to be good to have just, in-house and see what we're capable of at this point.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I honestly look forward to it.
Yeah, I think I kind of expect things to be pretty different because we've looked at improving our comp, because we had one of our fights, we had rapiers and stuff. I don't know, we've learned a lot since then. And
well, and a thing I was saying before is I knew our competition was going to get better, and that what we were doing wasn't long-term sustainable. And so we just had to, I didn't want to jerk the wheel and guess to see what it was going to be before it was, we saw what other people were being successful from and just learning from it. I don't need to.
I guess the thing that
reinvent the
surprised
wheel.
me was really the gap in like the difference in like someone who really knows what they're doing versus like someone who's like still picking up the parts and putting them together, so to speak. And I thought that's like really, really huge. And I guess I should have expected that because that happens in every competitive game. I just didn't expect the alpha testers to be so far ahead in like the meta development.
Yeah, I just think it's so weird that like we can't really get a clear cut view of who is the best on the server, especially with all these like the current exploiting that's been going on with people exploiting the mobs on the walls to be able to
but that
watermark and things.
ultimately like equals out, and it's a poor conversation to have because it doesn't make anyone happier. It doesn't make us happier if we talk about that, and doesn't make them happier either. And then on top of that, like who's to say that like, oh well, we found out that like armor doesn't matter, so we're just gonna wear tier 2 faction gear. Like I don't know, it's just they could say the same thing about tier 2 faction gear wearing at that point, right?
I mean, so I can answer that question for you. Ethereum's by and large the best guild on the server, hands down, by a pretty fair margin. And I think the difference there isn't anything besides, and I've started to see this from a couple other guilds now that they've like caught up or got their people on the server or whatever their situations have been, which was fun to kind of mock. But now they're all kind of coming to fruition a little bit, or at least some of them. Is just how long they've played together, right? When I've been listening to other people's comms, and how they move with how little communication they have to know exactly where they're going and what they're doing and stuff like that. I think one of the reasons I've been okay with going to some of these wars is just like a group of 20 is I was hoping that we would be able to, despite it not being like all us, whatever the case is still try to find that kind of playing together mentality where not everything needs to be said, and we can pick up on some of that, but I'm not sure that's being as effective as I want it to be. But I would say that's one of the biggest marketed differences is these guys' experience in working together as a close-knit unit, and then bringing some people on it's really easy to come into a group like I'm not being disrespectful or anything, but it's really easy to come into a group where the large majority of them have been playing together, and you just kind of have to tag along with them, follow along and support what they're doing, learn from them, and get up to speed really easy. Well, we're all trying to figure out, okay, how do we do this together? Who's our core? How do we play together? How do we play off of each other and stuff like that? And we have moments of really good success with that, but it's not a consistent, repeatable thing, which is what we need to work on and focus on. I could give a flying hot fuck about these exploits and the mass reportings and all that shit that we're going through last week, everything we've gone through and how it's all played out and shit like that. It literally doesn't matter. The only thing I am focused on and trying to get everybody else focused on is that we are not the best at this game, and there's a lot to learn. So let's put down this just literal bullshit. It just literally doesn't matter. Get off of it and start working on our own stuff, our own skill, our own gear, our own data discovery, our own tactics, our own comp, and then move out from there.
Well said.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think it's going to be really interesting to see how the culture of the server sort of unravels, because I think we're kind of at a crossroads right now where it could definitely go in one of two directions, where it could get real toxic and everyone can get real salty and like, well, you only won because you exploited, or you only won because you abused this thing. Or, if we set the right example, it could go the complete opposite direction where people, actually are, take their wins and losses with grace and just try to make the game more fun and don't, try to run people off the server or get super, bent out of shape when things don't go their way. So it's, with this level of competitive gamer, there's always going to be that kind of layer of toxicity. So we'll see how it plays out in the long run.
Absolutely. And, you can only control your own actions, so to speak, right? So, we're...
Sometimes.
And I do think that it's going to be interesting, like you said, to see how it unravels, though. for sure. Because
I'm optimistic about it. I think in general it'll be fine as long as everybody starts calming down about all this weird shit that is really more Amazon Games' fault than it is any individual or organization. I sincerely doubt there's as weird as some shit looked last week when we were doing this podcast. Now that been able to kind of take a step back, see what's been going on and all that kind of stuff, like the facts of it just don't matter, even if it is true. It just doesn't matter.
I do think the 24-hour ban thing is something that does need to get addressed. Like, the only reason that's not a problem right now is because we are kind of, everyone's agreed on the server that we're not going to abuse that, right? Like, that's really.
I don't know if that's. I don't want to get into it. It just.
I don't know if
it's
people
not
have
worth-
agreed.
We don't really know how it happens. It does. It's not worth a conversation. It became fairly clear to me that it wasn't like a coordinated thing. Whether there was a couple of outliers trying to, get a sneak one in or something like that, it's impossible to tell. At the end of the day, at risk of repeating myself, it is an Amazon problem. They're reporting. So Dank RNG got banned for 24 hours, right? And at first it was for abusive behavior. And then 7 hours later, when he appealed it, and then 7 hours later, they said, no, you're cheating. And then 2 days ago or 3 days ago, they sent him an email saying, we reviewed it and you were very negative and very toxic. And so then they went back to abusive behavior or disruptive behavior, whatever it was. And they gave no insight. They gave no context. They didn't tell him what he said. He was like, dude, all I've been doing is linking items and stuff. He's like, if I was being toxic, I'd tell you, Tim. And he gets emotional. He gets wound up like a couple of us do. But I believe him, and how could I not? What evidence is there? Nobody has gone, yeah, Dank RNG did this. I reported him. He doesn't have anything from the email from the company going, look, this is what you did. Don't do it again. Reel this in. There was just like some weird preschool Bible, like treat people how you want to be treated kind of bullshit.
My goal wasn't really to like jump hardcore and get you talking about it and everything, because like we've all said our piece on that, so to speak, and I think most people have moved on, except for maybe Pistol there.
Well, I don't mind taking the opportunity to grandstand, because I know there's been clips of certain people or this or that, or someone's upset about that. So I'll take the opportunity to grandstand and say that regardless of what's happened the past week or so, or whatever the case is, we're looking forward to getting our ass kicked and learning and getting our ass kicked a little bit less next time, and then a little bit less the next time. And then, I don't know, shit, maybe we might win one, the time after that.
Yep, we're here for fun.
Oh my god, the nails. Jesus, cat. Hey, what's your cat's name, by the way, Moreland? When he jumped up, you just called him Cat. Is that its name?
No, the one that jumped up is named Peach.
Peach, okay. I was hoping you named your cat Cat.
No, I didn't name her. Pixie named her.
What would you like to see for the kind of near future? We've heard a lot of rumors in the last week, a lot of leaks in the last week. They had a season that was leaked for companies and leaderboards based on how many acres they control of land, which is an interesting system. And then that was supposed to be, it says the current season right now lasts 14 more days, which would mean that the new season would start roughly at the end of the month or start of next month, which I think is fairly interesting to have that in development. And the reason we found this out is because everybody's map started glitching and they couldn't teleport to towns or interact with stuff. And they had a new map on there that had the territory ranking on the left-hand side for all of that. And that's how we found it out. So people posted a couple pictures of that. Do you think that's like a good next step after like people are done with all their gear in here, like 2 weeks, to start encouraging companies to fight over territories more?
We're painting the back of the house while the front's on fire, man. Like, we got to fix this lag and shit.
Yeah, I feel like we got to
bring in the ice gauntlets. So the thing we just talked about for the past hour, we got to solve those issues before I start even thinking about bringing a goddamn season into this fucking server.
But what about the Halloween patch?
They got rid of it, didn't they? They're not doing it.
Well, I mean, they have to do Halloween costumes, don't they?
I heard that they're skipping it this year, and they're going to pick up the rest of the holidays.
But what about re-releasing the arena they're going to do with Halloween also? The PvP arena. I feel like I've lost you guys. I'm trying really hard right now to have a
No,
conversation.
I've got a lot going on today. I'm sorry. I've got.
Yeah, I don't know, dude. It's just really weird to me. I don't know what to expect from them because it's like, well, our patch for this week with all these issues going on, there wasn't really any changes or improvements to anything. It was just a really weird patch.
They fixed 3 bugs with crafting, as far as I can tell. There was a UI bug where if you changed the materials, your minimum and maximum would increase. At one point, I had a piece of gear that I could make at 650 gear score, but it also would roll as low as like 550 gear score. So they fixed that, and they fixed another bug was if you left your gear on, it was like part of your grinding gear, then you wouldn't get the buff for like crafting items. So you'd have to take off the gear and put it back on, and then you would get the buff properly again. And it seems like they fixed that one as well. So they fixed a couple different bugs with the crafting. So I do think it's pretty nice because I do think it's one of the core parts of the game. It's not, like I said before, the town buffs are still not working properly. So that's a little weird. But aside from the town buffs not working properly, they fixed the majority of our crafting bugs that were that I knew about at least. So I don't know, and I do think more people interact with crafting than tier 5 portals. So I can understand the focus on if they had to pick between those two. It would make sense, that you'd pick the crafting because more people interact with that. Because it's a problem that a new player would say, "Hey, I want to craft a Star Metal spear," and then it crafts 20 gear score lower because of bugs. Like you would probably just quit the game. You'd probably like, "Okay, yeah, I'm done."
Okay, well, I mean, you might be selling short how important having those 65 portals are. Like, I think those are pretty similar issues. But
one of the player base have gotten 60. It's just, I do think it's a very, very important, but it's a very vocal minority. Which is, like I said, I think that is very important because that's the audience that's on Twitch. That's the audience who's doing your sieges. That's the people who are going to go out and tell their friends to play the game and stuff.
If you ever want to raise my blood pressure 30 fucking points, just call me a vocal minority.
It is very good that they fixed those issues. I will agree. Those crafting issues. But when you have armor that doesn't scale in PvP, when you have T5 portals not even be able to access or use the Azoth staff, which is a portion extension of the story that they themselves intentionally rushed out. Like, they didn't even have to add that in if it wasn't ready, but they, for whatever reason, rushed it out. And then you have weird stuff like regeneration accessories. After you die, you have to take them off and put them back on for the regeneration to start working again, and et cetera, et cetera. It's just like, and then they disabled Outpost Rush, which is like kind of the only level 60, post-level 60 content, if you think about it. And they didn't really go into a whole lot of detail why it's still disabled. I just think that there's a lot of things that that they should clarify.
It's disabled because it was permanently killing characters.
That's a small
it was
issue.
Literally killing people's, like getting rid of people's characters or
permadeath.
Characters.
Yep.
Yeah, you couldn't respawn if you died in there. It was real hardcore PvP, homie.
Actual nano snapping people. Jesus, that's crazy.
Yeah, and then you'd start, dying in real life too. So it got real weird.
Like, can you imagine that? You're level 60 and you get Thanos snapped. You just put 200 hours into the game. Bye-bye!
I don't know. With the state of the end game right now, kind of wouldn't mind starting over again. I mean, that's been some of the most fun I've had this game is leveling, unironically somehow. But man, the game's got a lot of. Go ahead.
I was gonna say, like, as far as the PvP seasons and stuff, I think that's just under the giant umbrella of like all the massive potential that the game has if these guys just get it together. I mean, that potential, even without thinking of something as grand as seasons, like the potential of fort battles is completely being missed right now. Like, the only time we ever get good fights over forts is right before they lock during a siege. Because otherwise, like, what's the fucking point? You're going to go down there and then you're going to take it and then you probably won't get a fight. Some level 12 is going to take it back 20 minutes later. Like, there's even the existing systems are so short of their potential with just a minor amount of work. That, the idea of something like a season, I mean, yeah, sure, I guess, but I feel like they could prove their worth with some of the existing systems a little bit first.
That's been really strange too. With forts locking down like they are, people have started like declaring at like 4 a.m. in the morning so that they can guarantee lock it down and stuff.
Yep. I mean, I just don't know why that isn't a core feature of forts, independent of wars. Like that lockdown mechanic that should always exist for forts. You should be able to go place your flag in the fort. It announces it to the server, and if the other factions don't take it within X number of minutes, you lock that shit down. That's how it is, right? Like, of course, that's how it should work.
I think it should be locked down for an hour, and you have to have a group of 5 to go out there and take it over. So you have to have 5 people from the same faction there. It's locked for an hour, and then it unlocks, but it's still yours until a group of 5 goes out there. So it's not one rat. You know there's a group of 5 there for at least 5 minutes. You can bring the boys out, lock it down for an hour. I think that's
I mean, I think there's a bunch of ways they could implement it that would all be thousands of times better than the current version.
A win condition, like something you said a while back, was the consequences. Like you said something about like rewards and consequences, and it wasn't related to New World. It was related to like one of your favorite games, like EverQuest, or what's the game you always play?
Ultima Online.
Ultima Online.
Played a lot of games.
The reward and consequences structure there for the social dynamics is well made, and I just ever since I heard that, I just keep thinking about New World and how like they need those rewards, which is like the victory condition, right? That's the reward, and they need more of those for PvP in open world. And then,
I mean, even
the consequences would be you lose it, and then you have to pay twice the teleport cost for an hour or 2 or whatever they want the penalty to be.
Even my tenure in GTA 5 RP is much of it was only 140 people in a server, but it was such a good MMO experience. It brought me back to like some of those older games where there was a ton of consequence, and the police would find me breaking into houses, but it was like really, when I did that, I stood to make a lot of money potentially, or just get nothing, and absolutely get arrested and lose a ton of time. And so like even games like that are starting to really kind of pull it together, or ideas and passion projects. And it's crazy that a multi-dollar company is kind of missing that. But I think we've had that in previous conversations where we know that they're just playing it safe for now. But I was hoping that they'd be hyper aggressive on these bugs, and like just coding issues and numbers in the game that aren't correct. But
so this is my hot take for the day.
I think you've already had yours. Maybe for next week.
I think they have been doing, like, as far as the number of bugs in the game, I think they've been doing an okay job of smashing them. I think the unfortunate, story is that they have so many bugs that it's, no matter how many they could potentially smash with their 200 band team or whatever they are, right? Or 300 band team or 400, whatever. I want to satisfy us because, like, fundamentally the game's coding is just like flawed, right? So there's no amount of like bug fixes that would really be able to satisfy us, I don't believe. So, but I think from
it's about triage though, man. So
what have they fixed? Wait. What have they fixed?
The crafting stuff has been entirely resolved, in my opinion, aside from the town buff. Like I think that's a huge step in the right direction. The chest actually being able to drop proper in-game items, because before you couldn't get like basic trophies or major trophies. Like those items just didn't exist. The items required for that, they just didn't exist. Like they were just perma sold out. You couldn't even buy basic trophies for like 10,000, 20,000 gold. They just didn't exist. And so fixing that is like, although that really hurt the economy for the other materials, you can actually now make basic trophies. What else have
they fixed? So they fixed rare drops from chests and broke refining in the process. What else have they fixed?
I think like if you look at it from fixing game breaking issues, that's a game breaking issues. You can't, like, furniture crafting is unviable unless you can get those. So like the entire life skill is dead with that. And then all the other life skills, crafting stuff, they're only relevant if the crafting actually works properly. So they fixed, in my opinion, if you look at that, they fixed every single item where it requires gear score, every single crafting requires gear score, got fixed, and they fixed furniture crafting in the same patch. And that's a very niche part of the game that if you're a PvPer or a grinder, like, who fucking cares, right? All you see
those are vocal minorities, so...
Well, yeah, like those are different. As an MMO, you have different groups that you have to cater to. And I think that was okay for a patch. Now, the previous patch before that, I don't think there's any excuse, right? I don't think there's any excuse for the patch before that because the only noticeable bug that they fixed was they fixed one of the 2 abandoning event bugs. And that was the only thing I haven't noticed that got fixed out of the patch before last. So I don't think that's really acceptable. But for the last patch, I think that I'm kind of okay with that.
I don't know. I think fixing 1 bug a week is a pretty unsustainable pace for a game of this size and a company of this size. Even if it's a significant bug, 1 fix a week is pretty pathetic. I mean, all the stuff they said they fixed in the first patch isn't even fixed. Like you said, abandoning events is still broken. All the quests that were supposed to be fixed are still broken. I can't take half the quests in Great Cleave and Shattered Mountain, and I haven't been able to since day one. I mean, like they listed the quests that I can't take by name in those patches, and I still can't take them. So I don't know, dude. I mean, at least you know that was a hot take before you said it.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say.
Yeah, I mean, ideally, right? They would have another year of development. They would have personally squashed half of these, game-breaking bugs in that year, and like then they would have probably, twice as much polish as they have right now in the game, and that would have been kind of nice.
I would be okay, just as a start, I would be okay with the things that they list by name in the patch as fixed being fixed. Like if that could be the baseline at least, I would be a little bit less negative.
Yeah, they do need to tighten up their patch notes. It really doesn't. It seems like there's huge communication issues going on internally right now because there's like usually half a dozen things that change. Like this week, one of the big changes this week is character motion is really, really fluid now. Before, you felt like a robot. You're like 45 degrees to the left, 45 degrees to the right. And now your character like smoothly runs to left and right, and it like transitions the animation properly, and it feels really, really good. And that was something that's not in the patch notes. At least not that I saw, and that is a huge quality of life change that this didn't get mentioned in there. And there's like a lot of things like that where the communications is falling through, where people are like, there's not really a way for the small dev who fixed that to send it up and make sure that's noted in the patch notes. So they definitely need to work on patch notes for sure. I think a lot of companies undervalue that by a lot, and Amazon is definitely messing up by putting things in the patch notes. First, you should never put something in the patch notes that this doesn't exist. We could all agree on that. Like if you didn't actually fix it, don't put in patch notes. Like that's the fundamentals right there. And then 2, try to get everything you do change into patch notes so the players actually know what they're playing with, know what they can test, and then that helps you as developers actually refine your game even more. Like how are the players supposed to give you proper feedback if you can't even like do your patch notes properly? Like at least you could do the patch notes properly, right? So we have a good baseline to know what we're even supposed to look at. I don't know.
What do you guys think about that add-on that people have been using that like gives you a map and shows all the resources and locations and things?
Typical exploiters.
I had a dream about it. I had a dream that my second PC monitor was updating my map genie I was looking at when I was running around. But yeah, I had a dream about that. I think honestly, Amazon probably should look at that and figure out how to make the regular map reflect that. Like there needs to be a better legend inside or better filters. Because right now, if you look at New World, you can already see a lot of like the herb locations. You can see a lot of the magic plant locations once you've gotten close to them and you've discovered them. I think they just need a better filters where you can just filter those things out on the map as you discover them. And then that almost removes the need for that after you've fully explored the map. Because I think inherently that you need that secondary map just proves how poor their in-game map really works. So I think that'd probably be the solution long term I'd like to see. For people who don't know, it's there's this addition you can add on, which has not been approved by the developers. It's kind of questionable, but it will basically run around and update what items are currently available to you. So if someone's gathered the star medal locally, then the star medal will automatically disappear on this website map or however it works. So you can actually know like how long it's been since it's been down, and it'll give you like a timer and all this stuff. So you can, if you went by work out minutes gone, you're like, okay, in 30 minutes, it'll be like, okay, you go pick that up again, and you can know exactly.
That's so strong. That's crazy
It's
strong.
pretty crazy strong, dude.
Yeah. So I think developers need to make a stance against the timer side of that, and then probably do better filters in map at the same time. But that way, like you're helping players play the game and you're giving players huge quality of life, while at the same time preventing the extreme negative advantages you get from the other map, and making that bannable.
It's crazy.
I wouldn't mind having like in-game map markers that we could put, like permanent ones on our map to mark resources and stuff. But anything that's going to give you like a respawn timer for a resource that you're not present for on a third-party application, that's something they got to crack down on real quick.
Yeah. And to be clear, I haven't used this for obvious reasons. As a streamer, I just can't risk that. But that my understanding is that you run around and the resources that are supposed to be there disappear, and they tell you that they're not available, and it tells you when you were last there. Is like my rough understanding of that. If you're more interested in that, there's plenty of, I'm sure, YouTube videos on that and like details on how that works and stuff. For people who are wondering why we're talking about this, is because the guy developed it and has actually sent it to the developers for approval, is my understanding. And we're kind of waiting for Amazon to give the golden blessing to say, yes, you can use this and we won't ban you. Which has been done in other games, if I'm not mistaken. Is that correct?
Apparently,
do you think that's the direction they should go? Do you think that they should be allowing this kind of shit?
Well, the justification of the person is using, from what I've seen, is that the program or whatever that they're using to generate this is whitelisted by the game or the protection, the game guard or whatever security the game has.
Well, they're using a third-party program to give you information not otherwise ascertainable.
Well,
like I'm not a techie, dude.
It's almost the exact definition of cheating. Like, so I'd be like,
well, the thing.
So it's whitelisted and all that kind of stuff. Great, but allowing it being okay to have this isn't a parse meter. This isn't like just counting numbers and stuff like that. It's telling you if the thing that you can't see yet is there or not. It's a Diablo 2 map hack, basically.
Yeah, I think ultimately there's a couple like core flaws with just the way they designed the items in general. The fact that items respawn in the same location, there's no variance, like that inside itself is a problem. There should be a lot more diversity in respawns. Like, they should be able to spawn, anywhere, and then have like 20 different patterns it can spawn in. And it should be like cleverly designed. Like, I don't think, and then that would just kind of solve the issue, because then the game always feels fresh. Like every time you go through, you have to explore the game world again and see like, oh look, the hemp grew over there in the hills that time. Like, let's go over there.
That would make gathering so much better if it was randomized.
Wild.
Yeah. And I think that would solve that issue too, because then you can't make maps for that kind of stuff. Like the iron would be in different spots, right? The hemp would be in different spots, and that kind of self-solves that. I think by
fixes a lot of problems with the economy too, honestly.
Mm-hmm. And like, I think that's probably what they need to do long term, is to make it like more sustainable and fix a lot of these systemic issues. So
regardless of how this program works and stuff, I just don't know if this is a game that needs mods like that.
Well, honestly, like if you have players are going to turn everything to a spreadsheet ultimately. Like they want to get as close as possible to a spreadsheet that spits out like, do this activity to get the most efficiency. And that the most efficient way typically is the least fun way. And I think allowing this type of thing ultimately makes the game less fun. And you can see this in like classic World of Warcraft. They have all these mods that tell you like DPS, and like the alerts are going off, like I don't know how, I don't play classic WoW, but I know they have all these mods that basically have made it where it's much easier to play the game than it used to be. It was never intended to be that easy to play with all those mods.
I'm very worried about the power creep of starting to introduce mods in this game, and then the devs having to adjust gameplay to the point where those mods essentially become mandatory because they know people have them. Like that whole trap was one of the biggest things that made WoW Classic way less fun for me than it could have been. And I really don't want that to be the direction this game goes, where there's 51 different gameplay mods that you have to have, or else you're literally throwing.
Yeah, it's not fun for multiple reasons. It's honestly like a botting arms race, but the developers allow it, and that's the way I see it. Because in botting, like, you make anti-botting software, the bad guys who are making bots figure out how to get around it, and then the developer company has to make more anti-botting software, and it just goes back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And like, I think when you have mods, it's the same thing. Right? You develop the gameplay that plays around the mods that exist today, and then the people make new mods that optimize the gameplay again. So then you have to make things even more complex, and it just goes back and forth until you get a game that's not really that fun.
Yeah, I don't like mods.
I think ultimately the decision is, if someone's doing a mod, it typically is because you need to improve some part of your game that's lacking right now. So whenever you see a mod, I think developers should look at it and be like, well, there's something that players want here. How can we add, that to the game in a meaningful way without ruining the game? And then we can ban this mod, Like, I think
there's two very distinct categories here that have to be considered. And it's the same thing with games like World of Warcraft. There's certain mods that, like, if they didn't exist, I would not have even played WoW Classic. And it's because the game in and of itself is lacking a level of quality of life that you come to expect in modern games. I think that's separate from gameplay mods that play the game for you, or show the best strategy, or like, there's a difference between quality of life mods and gameplay mods. And sometimes that line can get a little bit blurry, but something like a parser that reads your system log and tells you how much damage per second you're doing, I don't feel like that's really problematic versus something that's downloading the respawn timers for all the nodes around you and telling you when they're going to respawn. Like, that's not information your system log would normally have. When it comes to mods that people are using for quality of life, yeah, sure, I think that the devs should look at that and look for ways to implement that. But when it comes to mods that just make the game easier, or dumb things down, or take away the need for players to solve problems, then I don't think the devs should be learning from that, because that's part of the game, is solving those problems. And we don't need, obviously players are going to look for loopholes that require them to solve less problems, but that doesn't mean that players are right. The game needs problems to solve, or else it ceases to be a game.
Yeah, that's like a very good point, honestly. I guess
I don't like mods.
Yeah, I guess
mod bad.
Mod bad. Very not good, not fun. What do you guys like? Oh, there was something else that happened this week.
Oh god, it feels like it's been a month, dude.
So much has been happening this week. Dude, the politics on this server are wild, man.
I'm so tired.
Especially since Ethereum swapped, it's been nonstop drama.
Yeah. I think that's what makes it fun, though. As soon as you stop having people, as soon as you have people who don't have, as soon as there's no drama between companies, stuff like that, that's when the game starts dying, or everyone's one big political faction, and you're just organizing scripted fights aren't fun. I did
want on the mod thing. I'm sorry, I want to take it back for 1 second. There was actually, I found this thing on Twitter. There was this guy, a couple of my old BDO friends, obviously came from RuneScape and stuff, old school RuneScape. And this guy actually spent years and years on this big project to redo the graphics of old school RuneScape, which sounds like sacrilege, but he actually did a fucking phenomenal job on it. And 2 days, again, worked on it for years, very public about everything, all this kind of stuff. 2 days before it was supposed to launch, they said that it was going to, anybody who used it was going to get banned. And so he started, he reached out to streamer Twitter and all these different things on it. It just absolutely blew up. And they actually ended up integrating it into the game as a standard mod kind of thing, I guess. I don't remember what the solution was, but the solution was it was okay to use, and there was official support for it. So I thought that was something that was really cool. This guy had worked so hard to better the game and put years of effort into it, And then, at the 11th hour, they go, oh, no, fuck that. And then they gather all this support for something just to make the game look better substantially, with like still holding the culture of the game. And so, that's a really good example of how mods could be useful, to make a game better. I just wanted to throw that out there.
I do. Yeah, I think that's a good example for how mods can better a game. In a game like New World, the way I would see it is like, why don't the developers just make the graphics better, right? Or a game like RuneScape, why don't the developers just do what that guy did? Like, it's obviously
that's what they were stating, is that it was in conflict with a project that they had upcoming plans for. But then they push back and they're like, no, it's not. Prove it. What are you working on? Let's see something.
Yeah,
and then they're like, you know what? I think we'll just go with this one then.
Not working on anything, right?
I think they got caught with their pants down, right? They should have been doing something like that.
Yeah.
And then they didn't. And this guy with like 2 people or himself or something, just knocked it out of the fucking park. And so they were just like, all right, maybe we should just let this happen.
How often does that work when the company does a visual update to a game and it doesn't look like ass? Like, have you guys ever played an MMO that's been out for a while? And
World of Warcraft did an excellent job keeping their graph. Oh yeah, 100%. If you really look at like 2003 or 2004 WoW, and then you play like today's WoW Classic, holds together what it looked like back in the day. And like the graphic changes have been subtle. I remember back in BC, people were really looking for more graphic changes. And then in Wrath of the Lich King, we got a little bit more. They kind of just started inching it out, but over time, so it wasn't like really drastic, but over time it came back looking really good.
That was mainly just like higher resolution and maybe some better shadows. Like, they never actually replaced models and stuff like that, did they?
I don't know the specifics, but I know that the game looks phenomenally better than when it was first released, but still has that same style and feel.
I know they've updated the engine that they have like 2 times. And so that did a lot of wonders. I think some of that is like, sort of like low polygon technology, so to speak, where you have a bad texture, but you blend it in clever ways where the shadows look smooth and like the textures don't look like garbage, even though you're using like basically nothing.
I know they did a good job updating the graphics in that game, because I remember launching WoW Classic and thinking, oh, this looks exactly how I remembered it. But there's actually a setting in WoW Classic where you can set it to look how it actually did look in Classic. There's a scale of 1 to 10. Yeah, there's a scale of 1 to 10 for graphic quality. And by default, the game's set to like a 7 or an 8. And if you set it to like 3, it actually says in parentheses, like, this is how the game was back in 2004. Like, this is classic.
That's so cool.
And so you set it to 3, and it looks like dog shit, bro. And I'm like, there's no way that this is what the game looked like when I played it last time. But it's crazy.
It's what you remember it would look like. Yeah, they did a really good job.
The graphics on 8 are what I remember, but the graphics on 3 is what it actually looked like. So it's really fascinating.
What's it called? Age of Empires 2. They did a really good job with their remaster. Diablo 2 Resurrected, I think they did an okay job.
Yeah, hit or miss with Diablo 2. I actually like the legacy graphics, and a lot of like just the feel of it somehow captures something that I think the remaster kind of missed.
Yeah.
Now, Demon Souls, that's a fucking remaster, dude. Oh my god, one of the most visually stunning RPG experiences I've ever had. I couldn't believe what a good job they did of remastering that game.
Wow.
I'm trying to think. What were some other games they got? Tony Hawk Pro Skater 2.
All the MMOs I know that have gotten updated look like trash, though. Like, every update to UO's graphics, all the new models I hated. Same thing with EverQuest. Every time they added new models to those games, I was just like, oh, this is gross. Like, I don't understand this style at all.
Mass Effect 1 was redone really, really well.
Yeah. Didn't they do the same thing with Witcher? Witcher 1 and 2?
I don't know. Witcher 1 was such a dog shit, fucking horrible game. I would never play that game.
Maybe I'm thinking
the combat. combat in that game was one of the worst combats I've ever had to suffer through.
Maybe
Isn't
I'm
that
thinking
true of
of
all
like
Witcher games?
Dark Souls on
No.
PC. Did Dark Souls on PC do anything?
Dark Souls had a very bad remaster where they, upscaled a few textures and then
It was a port, and
sold
then
it
they
for
made
$40.
it was an unplayable port, and then they remastered it to be a playable port with a couple better textures.
Pretty much.
It's exactly what it is. Yeah, it was unplayable.
It looks slightly better, but it's not like nowhere near the quality of the Demon Souls remaster. They're not even in the same fucking category. I don't even like using remaster as the same word for what happened to those games.
What other games got reworked? Yeah, I guess
When are we gonna get a Bloodborne remastered? Oh my god, dude!
I guess like if you like as you mentioned it though, like it, I don't know, maybe half of those turned out to be like average or below average as far as graphic reworks.
I don't know. I think most of them do a pretty good job when they go back to change up the graphics. But during my like little 2-week break before this game came out, I was playing a lot of Fallout 4 and got into like modding and all that kind of stuff. You want to talk about the right way to remaster a game? Just let people mod it. Some of the guns that I was able to use, and oh my god, the different shaders that you could put on the game, and removing some of the haze and just kind of clearing things up and all that kind of stuff, and really being able to tune it to your style or what you want the world to kind of look like. I mean, I know that doesn't work in MMOs and stuff, but man, is that just a wonderful thing, a wonderful way to dip as many hours into the game, outside of the game as you're going to inside of the game. I really enjoy that.
My DNS randomly crashed, so I have like no access to my chat or Discord notes or anything at all. So I have no idea how to fix that.
I don't even know what that means.
I just can't.
DNS?
I just can't access websites. Like
Name,
the rest of my
server.
internet's fine, but I just can't
Oh.
access any website.
Well, I can tell you how to fix that maybe off stream. It's not the
I probably have to reset my modem, but yeah, that's just why I was distracted.
Nice DNS, idiot. So I noticed oh shit, I should have written it down. I've been writing everything down because I keep forgetting. There was something on Twitter that I saw video game related that I wanted to bring up.
a new release.
Yeah, I know there was Fallout 6 that nails. I know there was Fallout 6 that came out, but there was something else I wanted to bring up. I completely forgot.
Oh, in game news,
You mean
if we
GTA 5 or GTA 6?
Oh yeah.
Far Cry. That's
Oh,
what
okay.
Far Cry.
Wait, game news?
what's the deal with GTA 6? Is it going to replace GTA 5? All the RPers going to move over? You think?
Gonna take him so long. There's so many things in those
So many
RP
mods
games.
and stuff.
And like Minimus Maximus, like those guys, the server, Twitch RP, they've got like a UO style like system for their skills and shit like that. Like I couldn't imagine how long it would take to rewrite all that stuff over. I literally just don't know. So
They announced that
there's a lot of assets in there.
They announced that they come out like early next year, right?
Did they really?
Yeah, for GTA 6.
Was it like March?
I don't know. I want to say March, but I think it might have been. Yeah, it's early next year anyway. I don't know what the time.
It'll be delayed. Due to the new strand of COVID, we want to make sure that we provide you with the highest quality game possible. We
Due to
don't want to let
COVID,
down
Echo
our
Strain.
our single player people, the growing RP community, the modding community, and especially our multiplayer. To that end, we will now release it in October 2022.
Ah, okay.
You heard it here first.
There you go. What was the other games?
Darkest Dungeon 2
Ooh,
is coming out, or maybe just early access. Something's happening on the 26th, but it's Epic exclusive.
yeah.
Cunts.
I heard it's Epic exclusive until the actual release of it. So it's the alpha or beta version or whatever it is. the early access version. It's out on Steam until the full release, and then it's released everywhere.
I fucking hate early access, dude, especially with a game like that. It's going to be so many spoilers. Like, what do I do? Do I just wait for full release?
I think it depends on the quality of it. Like, I would just see if it's like a 3 out of 5. Like, wait until the full release. You know, it probably got a lot of bugs. But if it's, I don't know, if it's got a 5 out of 5 or a 4 out of 5, like, I don't know, let's play through it, right?
Man, I wish we could just play games when they're new. I hate this early access shit,
Yeah,
especially for single player games. Fuck off, dude.
it doesn't hurt. It just hurts the game overall, right? I mean, I guess it's better for making money, probably, but bad
Did you
worse
guys-
for players.
You guys actually play GTA 3 or 4 or 5?
I never played any of them.
I
No.
played a lot of
My
GTA
parents-
over the years.
My parents were like, that shoot 'em up game. None
You
of
guys
that.
really never went through the story of 4 or 5? That's incredible. That's probably
No.
one of the best RPG games ever made, man.
Yeah, dude. GTA 3, San Andreas, Vice City, GTA 4, GTA 5.
Like the way that they deliver the lore is that, terminology we use in GTA 4 was like probably one of the best games of its time. And then they actually kind of busted through the ceiling with GTA 5 and how they were telling 3 kind of intermingled stories at the same time that, came into contact at different points and stuff. And it was really cool. The voice acting, the character models, all that kind of stuff. I can't believe you guys haven't cut out some time to go through the story of those games.
Honestly, it was the marketing of the game. It's the reason I never tried it. I looked at the box art and the way it was being advertised, and it just seemed way too normie-ish to me.
No.
Yeah, I mean, I know that's wrong now, but I'm just saying, like, that's why I never played it back then, because it just looked like a FIFA or like some other like dog shit normie game.
Well, I played like Vice City because everybody played GTA 3 if your mom would let you. And then I played Vice City because they had motorcycles, and so we just like me and my friends would just like take turns driving around and doing jumps and motorcycles at Vice City. I missed San Andreas, and then I picked it back. I picked up GTA 4 because IGN was like 9.5 out of 10, which is a normie thing to say, but back in those days, IGN was pretty spot on.
I remember when IGN was a real website. Holy
Right,
fuck, those were the days.
right. And so they're like, hey, it's not perfect, but or they did give it perfect. I think it was a perfect score, and they only had like 12 perfect score games at the time or something. And so I picked it up, and it was absolutely incredible. And then it was it was like more of a curiosity if they could run it back for GTA 5, and they absolutely did. So I don't know if you ever are like out of your library or something, I would highly recommend just picking up 5 and going through the story. It's a great, 20, 30, 40, 50 hours, depending on how slow you take it. And then by now, obviously, you can mod the ever living shit out of it to make it look fucking gorgeous.
Yeah, I feel like modding is like, it's one of those things where it's like a double-edged sword. I feel like it's like there's so many cool benefits to modding. I kind of want to see games develop that more, because I feel like that's an easy way to keep your game alive for like months and months and months and months, where a single player game would normally be dead after a month after it was burned through the entire campaign or something, right?
What's crazy what modders have done with the Elder Scrolls games. I mean, particularly with Elder Scrolls 4 and 5. Talk about absolute dog shit games that suddenly became, 1,000-hour amazing experiences because of modders. Like, that's really all it took was, a few downloads, and it's a completely different experience.
Does Wrecking Ball CC?
Yeah, CC is super hard if you take the perk underneath it. Flatten is like super knockdown. It's like knockdown plus.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, I think it's a knockdown where you actually stay on the ground after taking damage for the full duration, unlike regular knockdown where you stand back up. I could be wrong about that. I probably need to retest it, but yeah, it was super strong in beta.
All targets within 1.5 meters are also flattened.
Really good, dude. Yeah,
Boy.
it takes people out. When we were doing that war against aggression, the whole time I'm running around hitting people with my axe, and like they're just getting healed. When I pulled out the hammer and did my 3 my combo, the stagger into stun into knockdown, everyone, I would catch 3 or 4 people in that CC chain, and they would all drop to like 30-40% health, when before I couldn't get them below 90. Like that, those CC chains are just so good, especially when a comp is really stacked on healers.
I think it's really weird how a lot of the CCs, once they're hit once, they're broken out of it. Like, how do you guys feel
it's
about
very
that?
unintuitive too. Like, why is a stun more effective than a knockdown? That's usually the opposite in most games.
Yeah, I feel like they, if it has a stun duration, it should just last the entire time. And if they need to make them longer or shorter to balance it out better, they should just do that.
Yep, I agree. I think
Anyway,
those mechanics should be more intuitive.
Back to modding real quick. I agree. And actually, I started watching a lot of YouTube videos about the Fallout series, New Vegas. I watched, I think it was actually IGN. They had a relatively good series called Developers React to Speedruns of their games. And so people are like speedrunning through Mass Effect and Fallout and stuff like that, and they give you really cool tidbits. If you guys haven't checked that out, it's some of it's pretty interesting. But people put like entire expansions into these games. It's absolutely incredible. And so I know Skyrim was pretty much saved by that. But
somebody is remaking the entire game of Morrowind in Skyrim.
They're never going to finish that.
Fucking crazy, dude.
Never going to finish that. Just mod Morrowind. Just mod Morrowind.
No, you can't mod Morrowind, bro. Have you played Morrowind recently?
No,
that game didn't age well in a lot of ways.
This YouTuber that I watch goes back and plays old games. Was Morrowind? I think Salt Factory is his name. Was Morrowind as good as I remember it? And he puts like light graphics mods and stuff on it, and he just goes before, after. Sorry if you'd want me to play it vanilla, but I'm just not going to do that. Fuck you. And he goes through and all the different highlights and lowlights of the game. It's actually really interesting. Salt Factory. He did about 20 games. And the way we remember games versus him like actually diving into the different quest chains and all the different houses that you can do and stuff like that. Super fucking good.
That game was on another level. They peaked with Morrowind. Can't fucking wait to play it again in Skyrim.
I'm gonna send you that video. You should watch that video.
There's someone doing something similar with Fallout or New Vegas, right? They're like remaking a new game. It's like New Republic. It's like based in California.
Yeah. Well, that's the NCR, I think, right?
Yeah, it's like the NCR side, basically.
Yeah,
these
like Blue Shift for Half-Life.
Yeah, these Dark Souls Overhaul mods too. It's really is like getting to play Dark Souls 1 all over again. The way that they redo all the boss fights and change up the way you go through levels, like it's super crazy. It is akin to like a full expansion to the game, what some of these modders do.
And then, think about it. Counter-Strike was a mod for Half-Life.
Really?
You didn't know that?
I didn't. Yeah, I never knew that.
Yeah, dude. Team Fortress, Counter-Strike, those were mods.
Dota was a map in Warcraft 3.
Dota was a map.
Tower defense games literally were created from like Warcraft 3, and then now they're like
tower defense, MOBAs, lots of subgenres.
Yeah, MOBAs were completely created from that. Yeah, but Counter-Strike was like they started selling it separately for like $5 or something at like I think 1.3. But I remember in 1999 I had a nice like Pentium or a gigahertz processor. And so my dad was like, we've got to play this game. And he brought home Half-Life, and going through that tunnel, and the graphics were insane. It was the hardest fucking video game in the world. But then like I found out, my buddy found out like immediately. He's like, hey, there's like this 5v5 terrorist counter-terrorist thing. We should try this out. And like then 10 years of my life just melted by.
Were you a prop hunter?
A prop hunter?
Yeah, like there was that era where like prop hunt took over YouTube, you know?
I don't even know what that is.
It was like the game mode from there where it's like all the people could like disguise themselves as some random object throughout the game, and then one person had to go and find everybody and like hit them.
I missed all of that.
Dude, that's crazy.
But I did they had Half-Life 1 deathmatch with a bunch of crazy mods. We would go into low gravity Half-Life 1 death box deathmatch matches and we would load up every hack we could possibly find. And it's probably the most amount of fun I've had in a video game, especially an FPS video game. Through the days. Sorry, reminiscing. Well, that was a good.
It's the same thing
tangent.
with Final Fantasy VII, dude. Like I tried to go back and play that game without mods, and it's real crunchy. Like not a game where the graphics really aged well at all. But man, you slap a few mods on FF7, update some of the models, and it completely revitalizes the game. Like because I got the urge to go back and play it again after FF7 remake turned out to be, you know, not like much of a remaster, but an actual remake, like an actual different game. And so, you know, after I played that, I'm like, well, I still do want to just go back and play an updated version of the original FF7. And so, you know, I spent a couple days researching mods and getting a bunch together. And man, it completely changes the experience and like really does modernize it.
I played on my phone, and fuck, is it hard? I forgot how hard that game can be. I got like hard
7?
stuck. I got like hard
Really?
stuck on trying to get Red 13 out, man. I was like just kind of going through it and reading all the stories and stuff, and I wasn't paying attention to like my loadout and like the actual combat of the game. You actually have to fucking pay attention. Like ran out of potions. I was like, just thought it'd be a stroll in the park. Thought it was a god gamer, and I'm like, holy fuck! I think I actually have to pay attention to something besides the story because I was just interested in getting back into the story and stuff like that. And I'm like,
Yeah,
fuck, this is kind of hard.
I actually kind of miss that. It feels like games these days cater like way too much to casuals. Like, because I don't know, they're afraid that a few people will quit like halfway into the game because it's too hard or something. Like that's one of the things in New World that I would really like. I really kind of miss is like, I feel like there's no point in dodging because you can just seal through all the damage you take. So like,
I mean,
And also dodging isn't effective.
yeah,
I can remember a lot of times with like a couple different games, like back before like I even had access to the internet and stuff. I would literally go to get my mom to take me to Walmart just so I could sit on the floor in the game section and look at the Game Informer guide for the book, like of the game, to figure out how to beat something. It's kind of crazy thinking about that now that like that was actually a thing, but like I would literally just go to Walmart and like they have like the guidebooks, they'd sell them for like $20, but I'd just be like, I'd open it to the page of the mission that I'm stuck on and it would be like, hey, yeah, do this.
Yeah, your state got internet, 3 years ago, right?
Yeah, fuck you, Tim.
I remember those days. I remember thinking back about that. I think the last game guide that I bought was Final Fantasy X. Because there was a bunch of stuff like right off the rip that you like if you just pass by, you'd never be able to go back and get again. But like having that kind of walk through guide thing for like I'd normally do it for a second run through, but to have that and because there really was no like video game content sites like that.
Dude, you guys remember game FAQs?
Nope.
Oh my god, I spent so many hours reading those.
You guys subbed to Nintendo Power?
Game Informer magazine.
Be fun to see us.
Bro, Nintendo made so much money off those guidebooks back in the day too.
Imagine all of us trying to play like Castlevania or something one day, seeing how far we could get in an hour.
No, dude, the old Ninja Gaiden, you remember? The old like Ninja Gaiden games were like the
any
hardest
of those
games ever, bro.
Even like Super Mario or something. Like all those games are super fucking hard. And like if you take like no refresher, I went back to Super Mario World, I think, was one of my favorite games growing up, and I went back to it and I was like, how the fuck did my 7-year-old self like pile through this game?
I Ninja Gaiden 3, that's I think the only one of those I played, and that was, like you said, really, really challenging. I remember the getting spawn camped by the boss. This game wrecked.
Or even like some of the Metal Gear Solid games, dude. Like I used to be obsessed with those games, and like that was back during the memory card days. And it's like I didn't have a memory card, so like I would try to hide the fact that the game was still on for like a couple days at a time. You know, I'd cover it with like a bed sheet.
Doing that.
Yeah, dude. I'd like cover it with a bed sheet and pray like, "Wait, please, while I'm at school, Mom, please don't turn it off."
Holy shit.
God, dude, now I feel old, and I'm not even crazy old.
You'd have like I remember the CD making a lot of noise on like some games, and like you would be like, all right, we'll push it to the back. We're gonna put a pillow in front of it. Like we're gonna block it off. We're gonna tape over the power off button so they only see the other buttons that don't do anything.
Yeah, dude. Or like, did you guys ever like play handhelds to any extent? Like, you know, I'm talking about like Game Boys.
Oh
and
yeah,
stuff.
dude. I put a couple hours into that old Pokemon game. You guys remember that one?
Yeah, dude. Like, so I
I
had a
had
Game
like,
Boy.
dude, I went so fucking hard on Pokemon. Not only did I max out a bunch of different teams at level 100, there was this weird system where you could bump your stats after they were level 100 until you hit like some sort of actual hard cap where they like
EVs
kept
and IVs.
yeah, like their stats kept going. It wasn't just the
Yeah.
items. There was like some weird hidden experience bar. Like, yeah, dude, I fucking disentangled all that game's like hidden broken buggy systems and maxed out all my Pokemon to like the ridiculous degree when I was like 15 years old or something.
There was some crazy times. I remember like I got a Game Boy Color and it was like my first like handheld system, and it was like purple and kind of see-through or whatever, but I thought it was the coolest thing ever. And there was no backlight on it. So it was like, okay, well I play it. Well, I can't play it in the dark because there's no backlight. Well, I remember they came out with like the Game Boy. It was like the Game Boy SP or something like that. And it had a backlight on it. Like the screen was lit up. So
that was
like,
it.
yeah, so like I remember multiple times my brother and I getting in trouble because we'd like try to hide under the covers so my mom couldn't see the light and know that we were still awake. But it was
Yeah,
sick,
you have
though.
a flashlight on or something.
Yes,
sneaky.
But then like you didn't have to have that anymore because the screen had a built-in light.
Oh
yeah,
dude.
It was like revolutionary for my young lad self.
Okay, but there was, you know what's crazy is like 10 years before that happened, there was already a handheld that was backlit that you could play in the dark, made by Sega.
Gear.
Yeah, the Game Gear.
I was right about to bring that up.
I feel like almost nobody knew about this. Like none of my friends had one. When I bring it up now, people are like, "What?" Like, yeah, it was full color. Like I remember Game Boy Color came out, and it wasn't even color. It had like 2 different shades of red that they added. Meanwhile, like Game Gear was actually full blown color with a backlight screen, like years before any of that shit happened. It was just so hungry for batteries that I think that's really what.
It lasted like
viable.
an hour and a half. So you'd have all these accessories, or I had all these accessories on it, where I had a screen magnifier on it. I had extra battery packs and shit that were like rechargeable. It like all the grips and stuff, so it wouldn't, if I dropped it because I was 5, it wouldn't break the $400 handheld thing. But yeah, you could play like basically it was a little after Genesis came out, and it was basically a handheld Sega Genesis with like, I don't know, 6-7 inch screen.
Crazy. I never even heard of that.
It was enormous, dude. It had to have been a foot long by a half foot.
It was pretty
tall,
big.
And then probably 3, 4, 5 inches thick. Like it was
probably like the size of what a Switch is now, you think?
Mm-hmm.
Or do you think it's even bigger?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think
that's
kind
of crazy.
Right, it might have been that long, but it was thick as fuck and a little taller. And it, just a little, the screen was a little bit bigger than Game Boy's, but not much.
Yeah, it took like 6 or 8 fucking AA batteries.
Dude, I do not miss the AA battery days. Like my brother and I, we were like young.
Did it take AA or D's? Did it take those C's and D's? Was it?
No, it was a bunch of A's because
I remember.
I remember asking my mom for more batteries, and she was like, "What the fuck are you using all these batteries for?"
Dude, my younger brother and I, we would always try to find these ghetto ways to like recharge batteries. Like we would
dude,
put
I would steal them from the TV controller.
Yes, dude, we'd put them in the freezer, dude. I don't know who told me that you could put AA's in the freezer and it would recharge them, but like we'd have like 10 AA's lined up in the freezer trying to get some juice out of them. Fuck,
I remember rotating batteries, so you'd have like one fully charged battery and one battery that you like dead that you like that you used a little bit.
Oh yeah, I still do that today. My I'm low on batteries and my thermostat went out of batteries, so I replaced 3 out of the 4 of them.
Yep.
Everybody's seen my income on Twitch, so don't blame me.
And then like it was a game changer because I met this guy in 6th grade, and at his house he had a wall charging unit for AA batteries. And like I would just I'd give him my batteries at school and he would charge them for me, and that was like a crazy game changer.
One thing that like I'm really thankful for is actually that I was born when I was born, because when I was born, you didn't have personal PCs. Like maybe one or two people, like you might know someone who has a personal PC, but no one had one. And like since then, like we've gone from like personal PCs to handheld gaming devices to like everyone has their own cell phone. Now we're sending people back to space, electric cars. Like I don't know, it's just getting crazier and crazier and crazier. Like AIs are actually a thing now, and not just science fiction anymore. Like, and like
always go full Amish.
I absolutely despise the time that I'm alive. I don't like this time at all.
I do
I'd
think
like
it's
to be
probably
born
the
like
worst.
100 years before or after.
Yeah, I think it's like probably one of the worst times to actually live psychologically in. It's really hard because we just don't have any experience or know what's best, right? It's almost too much change to handle.
No,
But
man, alcohol
I
used to be super
definitely-
cheap, man. That's like, fuck.
I don't know, dude. I kind of with Potion where like I'm kind of glad the time that I ended up in for a lot of different, just because like I've seen a lot of like the change of a lot of things around me. So like my hometown that I was born in, it's crazy. It was a dry county up until last year. So like people literally couldn't sell alcohol. Even restaurants didn't have alcohol. And then like magically last year, it's like they got some new progressive kind of people voted in, and bam, you can now legally sell and buy alcohol. And then like they put like a community college there. So it's like I've seen like the progress and change of things. And obviously I wasn't born like a long time ago. I was born in 95, right? Which is, you know, after some of you guys, but still.
Yeah, every generation I has its struggles, right? Like if you were born 100 years ago, like you would have lived through Depression, you would have lived through like World War I, World War II. Like every generation has its struggle, so to speak.
We also can say that we weren't born during the Tide Pod eating era, you know, that was a couple years ago. Or like people licking ice cream and putting it back and like biting fruit, weird ass TikTok trends. So, you know,
I could have done without TikTok. Do you remember 9/11, Kerr?
I wasn't very young or very old then. I was really young. Was I in second grade, first grade?
You would have been
like
younger than
6
that.
or 7.
Yeah, you probably weren't in school.
No, yeah, because I started first grade or at 5. Yeah, because my birthday is August 17th, so I was a year ahead just because of the way my birthday fell. So yeah, I think I was either first or second grade.
Wow, that's crazy to me. I didn't want to get into that. I was just curious.
Yeah, I mean we're going down like memory lane anyway, so it's kind of just spitballing, right?
Yeah, every generation has its trouble. And if you lived 100 years before that, you know, you wouldn't have any like, I don't know, you would have like maybe not crazy wars and stuff, but then you had bacteria, like germs, like people were getting killed by completely different things. That was way worse.
Yeah, like life expectancy 100 years ago was like 40 years.
Oh,
I think that's like fine. Like that's that's probably what it should be.
It's like, yeah, that's like twice as much as what I need.
Exactly.
When I get to the point I can't wipe my own ass, put me in the ground.
I'm like not even halfway done with this shit, man.
Dude, with your
Fuck.
luck, Tim, by the time you're like 60, I mean, there already is any retirement, but you're not gonna ever be able to retire. And like life expectancy, they're probably gonna have some shit where people.
I want to be like 140. As long as I think like maybe it's even longer, right? Like I just want to see how long I last. I just want to be witness to like everything that changes in the next like 100 years.
You know, I saw a picture of my parents on their wedding day.
That's a shocker right there, because oh, sorry, I remember seeing that too.
Where are you going with that, Potion?
I'll just fire off. All right.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah, like I remember when I first saw my parents when they were first married, and like, you know, I was like looking, I was like, man, like this is, you know, they look younger than me, and it just kind of put everything into perspective that, you know, we're all just living our lives and we're going from point A to point B, and making the best of it as we go.
It's also kind of weird to think of like how the socioeconomic dynamics have changed over time, where it's like back then one like a man's income could sustain house, wife, kids, wife stay at home, and like a vacation or two a year without having any kind of like financial stress. Nowadays it's like I'll be lucky if I can buy a house by the time I'm 40, right? It's like it's kind of crazy how things have changed in the last 30, 40 years.
I do think the pendulum's starting to swing, though. We had the most people, I think, in history quit their job in 1 month last month. There's labor shortages across a bunch of different industries. Like, I do feel like, in general, people are kind of like, okay, enough is enough. Time to actually pay some decent wages, like we did back in the day.
So I saw a picture of my parents getting married the other day.
Tim's like, how did you guys segment into this after I said a picture of my parents?
Unemployment. I'm gonna be 40 before I buy. I bought a house when I was your age, Kurt. Get your shit together, man. Come on. No, and I didn't have any existential fear or even any feelings about not existing when that was happening.
Buy a Coke for a dime at the corner
store.
So
I'm not gonna, when there's pictures that'll be taken after I'm gone, I'm not gonna feel shit about that either. I'm just not worried about it, man. Release me from this flesh prison.
I'll tell you what the craziest thing was seeing my grandmother in a bikini when she was young. That was crazy. All right.
What was crazy about it?
Yeah, come on, man.
Well, getting old that does some things.
Did you know it was your grandmother at the time? You saw the picture?
Yeah, I did. But it that's like a catch-22 on that one, just about. But like I was just like, it just puts things in perspective. I think is like I would say it. Also, imagine what I'd be
if you really want to have perspective. Take a large dose of psilocybin and then look at pictures of your parents on their wedding day. And then you'll realize that you are your parents and your parents are you and you're also everybody else, and that death is an illusion and life is just a dream and that we're all just one continuous thing. Yeah, that'll realign you.
I can't wait to spend a weekend on your couch.
Dude, it's going to be fun.
I honestly want
You're going to be shocked at how much I cry.
I want to see
I won't be shocked at all.
I want to see like have a like Tim's perspective on things after the fact, right? I guess this is the way I'll say that. I think that would be an interesting conversation.
Mm-hmm.
I gotta see Potion on shrooms, dude. Make it happen. Whatever you guys gotta do.
I don't think anything would change, to be honest with you.
I don't either.
I think Potion's on a low dose of shrooms at all times, just latently.
It's on a low dose of something.
I just belt this way. I don't know. It's just, I think whatever part of your brain activates, I think it's just defaultly on for me. Like, I don't know. It's just, there's no alternative for me. Memory lane. That was something we were talking about.
Yeah. So I saw this picture of my grandparents getting married.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
How'd that go?
Like terrible. She did it like 7 times. It was ridiculous.
What, get married?
Yeah.
Yeah, 7's too many.
I think it was actually 4. But she still like when she like 3 years before she died, she still wanted to leave her husband at like 78 or something.
Start something new.
But like, what the fuck, Grandma? Yeah, rest in peace. I don't think I really have anything else.
I don't really have much either.
Playing a bunch of New World. I got to grandstand. I really wanted to grandstand on this episode.
Yeah. How's the Siege podcast going? Is that going to be a Saturday thing?
Yeah, so it's Saturday night.
That could be some good.
It'll be interesting if Alex shows up.
It looks like Val's been enjoying it. Like, this man's been freaking over the moon, ecstatic about it.
Yeah, well, he's been getting a lot of support for it. You know, a lot of people are showing up. He's doing a pretty good job with it. He's got some high expectations and plans for it. So you know, we'll see how it goes. But you know, it is kind of a cool place to kind of sit down and talk a little bit of shit about the fights for the week and stuff, and talk about the state of the game. So shout out to Not Valinaris.
I'll try to have a link in the description for that also, so for people who want to pick that up.
That's going to be so much of the longevity of this game, is like the community and the rivalries and the story of what's happening on the server.
So I think it's 9 p.m. Eastern he gets started on Saturdays, kind of regardless of wars, which brings people in and out. It's you know, he'd have to do it at like midnight since there's no like, you know, off war time or anything like that. So if you want to catch it there, I try to participate as much as possible as well. So and then Alex been there a lot, God Complex and PvP Pat and all those guys, and a couple of new people coming in and asking questions. So it's a pretty dynamic event. I'm just happy that I'm not the one doing it. Soul crushing job
with that.
Yeah, we'll pencil you in.
What's the like for people who don't know what a Siege podcast is, like maybe give people like a TLDR of what to expect.
So it's basically he has a rundown of topics of events of the week. So if major bugs came out, if people are talking about, you know, lag or something, big contentious fights, maybe there was some drama between different guilds, maybe somebody's been sitting on some shit that they don't really want to, like, you know, if TC is mad at Hemp Cartel or God Complex or whatever, and they haven't really said anything, and then they talk about a fight, and then all that comes out. It's kind of the inner guild drama that comes out with the, I don't want to call it a facade, but maybe the pretense of just all the major PvP guilds sitting down and just discussing the game calmly. It's quite literally a powder keg and almost never doesn't explode regardless of what the game is.
This sounds pretty interesting. Like, I mean, I don't know how else to respond to it. Hey, it's got Void Ore.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Can I borrow that from you?
I need 3 more, or no, 4 more. I can't do math.
4 more.
But yeah,
there was some listed for like 10k gold, and I was thinking about trying to buy 1 or 2 or something.
Yeah, they're expensive. I guess for the, like, going back to the Siege and give you a better proper response now that I'm not distracted. Like I think that's really helpful for the game. Like what Moreland said, like what the community makes for itself as for content, right, will be the longevity of the game, right? Like that I feel I'm explaining that poorly, but I do think that's really true. That without like the community coming together on that kind of stuff, like it just gets boring really fast, right? Like if everyone just sits in their territory, doesn't challenge anybody, we always know who's strongest. We have like a pecking order. It's like, I don't know, I think it's pretty boring pretty fast. So I do think that you know, the community making sure that the factions are fairly equal on their server that they're on and stuff, and like talking about this different stuff is important.
There's also a level of like wanting competition and good fights, but not wanting to kill the enemy guilds. You know what I mean? Like it's sort of like a problem that arose in BDO, where it's like the strongest guilds kind of got to the point where instead of wanting good fights, they were just literally out to kill opposing guilds and such. Mm-hmm. And then it just like divulges and kills the entire scene. So I don't see a whole lot of that. So that's a good thing, but we don't know. Time will tell, right?
It was pretty funny. The first week, PvP Pat came in and was all like, you know, Aftershock sitting at the children's table. You have no idea what you're doing here. We're gonna drain all your fucking resources. You're not gonna know what hit you, kid. You know. And then the next, I think that week, we like shit down their throat in a siege. And so then I got to throw those same things right back at him. You know, so it's kind of the friendly jousting back and forth like that of, you know, putting out a little bravado and then, you know, getting shot down and having to kind of lick your wounds. A lot of people find that fun and interesting. And it kind of gives like people within the guilds to, you know, to kind of attached to something, you know, oh, I can't wait to go fight those guys, or man, they really need to stop talking shit. Let's go push their territory, you know, stuff like that.
That's kind of like the whole point of MMOs, right? It's like that social dynamic that happens, that back and forth rivalry or like drama or whatever the case may be.
One would like to think.
Well, I don't know if there's been any good examples of good social dynamics in MMO recently, but I do think that's what the goal of them should be.
I think this game's doing a fairly good job of it. You know, again,
Yeah.
just the bugs and some of the low hanging fruit they need to fix, and hopefully it doesn't turn into a BDO, and we can get, you know, back on track here for a really longeved. How do I conjugate that? Long-term, fun PvP game that has some back and forth and faction swapping and shit.
Yeah. Well, they're obviously making an effort at fixing some of the bugs. Maybe not a good enough effort. And we know that they have a arena on the way, and apparently they're working on a leaderboard for companies owning territories. So I think all that stuff is
About time.
I think all that stuff is at least in the right direction, and that's more than we can say for about half the MMOs right now. So I'm pretty happy to see the future and you know, continue rooting for New World's development.
We have owned First Light longer than anybody else has owned another territory.
That's true. Where's our leaderboard?
Actually.
Yeah. I think second place is like Axiom with Restless Shore, but I forgot about that guild and that territory. But they got it later that night. They've been holding it.
They have been holding it. Well, have they gotten sieged yet?
No.
So I mean, yeah, they've been
holding it. Yeah.
We got to defend Potion Shop's baby tonight, bro. Like, this man has put so much time and effort into First Light.
I really want to like figure out what the actual mechanics are around, because right now the wording they have, it's kind of confusing about the influence bar and the bonuses for the losing faction. Like, it seems like the longer you hold a territory, the easier it is, but it's unclear if that's a separate system from like if your faction owns more territories in general. So I think a little more clarification there would be good too.
Yeah, like, I know there's a pretty massive underdog bonus. Like, right now we have the least amount, our faction has the least amount of territories. So if we were to go and push like Windsward or Everfall or something, it would be much faster than, like, you know, if any of the other two were trying to push a territory per person like rate. But we don't really know if it's like, okay, let's say Green has held Windsward for 12 weeks. Well, now we have a multiplier against that area as well because they've held it for so long. So it's like,
I suspect that it's way more about how long you've had the territory and way less about how many territories your faction owns.
I think it's both.
It's probably some combination of both, honestly.
Yeah.
Because we didn't own First Light for very long, but we had the entire map, and like 3 people just got like 20% chunks. So I think actually if we went and pushed Windsward, if anybody's free later, I think we'd get, when we were doing it before, they may have had that 24-hour protection. There was an invasion coming, and they own 2 more territories than they did when we initially did that, because we lost Morningdale.
A good example that we can look at for this is actually teleportation cost. Teleportation costs are based on like a base amount. It's also based on weight and distance. So there's 3 different factors that go into your teleportation cost, and there's 3 forts that actually dictate that as well, right? There's one for travel costs. There's one for distance, and then there's one for the actual making everything your weight lower as well. So I think the same thing is probably true for faction reputation. It's probably, like you said, many factors to that. And, you know, one is probably how many territories you control. Another one is probably like how long you've owned it. And maybe another one would be like how long it's been since your last war, right? Or how popular your faction is, maybe.
I don't mind not having the exact information on how it works. I think that's fine.
Yeah.
You know, the truth is somewhere in that mix, right? If you've got a bunch, it's going to be harder. If you owned it longer, it's probably harder or easier.
Yeah.
I think all that's fine. I don't think we need the exact data on that shit.
I think the two things that are important for me as a player are like it needs to be fun to push the faction territory stuff, and there needs to be some type of qualification system where you don't have the worst guild in the entire world challenging the best company at the same time. Like I would like to see that, because right now, like, you get a war, and then the very next day you have another war again, and then you have another one the next day, and there's no stop to that, so to speak.
Well,
so I'd like to see there be like a little bit of qualification to that, or maybe a little bit more cost to sink into it. Like if we put a lot of work in the first light, and if someone can just deck us and then take it from us, it doesn't seem like you should have to put in more work to take it from us if we put in more work to maintain it.
We'll get it right back if we lose a potion, I promise.
You promise?
I promise.
We're not going to lose the God complex. Come on.
I think there's no shot that half their roster isn't filled with Ethereum members.
They have beef with Ethereum, so we'll see.
Time will tell.
So
I'm looking forward to the fight tonight at like 10 Eastern.
We have 2 wars tonight. We have 2 wars. Both at 10:30 Eastern. Both our territories are being sieged.
I don't have anything else. That's about it.
Yeah, I've got a lot of work to do with Zabian, creating rosters here over the next couple hours before all that gets started. So stay tuned so you can look at me squint to my side monitor as I build rosters. All right, let's close it out then. Before we close this out, thank you guys for listening. This was episode 54. Just run down everybody real quick. If somebody's got some stuff they want to plug about their channel or content this week, Kerr, what you got going on, man?
Nothing too special, man. I'm just kind of just floating in between with school and clinical stuff. In terms of BDO, I'm just kind of like at a standstill in between with it. They were just waiting for them to release some more content and things to do, and then just doing New World Sieges whenever that happens. But just kind of being really passive. That's about it.
Mauro, what's up with you, man?
Hopefully more New World PvP and politics type stuff, and then just solving this game's economy too. I've got a pretty massive spreadsheet up and running now. Going to be testing that over the next few days, seeing if I can actually make a lot of money, and if so, probably start putting out some proper guides for this game. I think it's a little volatile right now, but there's some trends I'm starting to notice, so we should be able to make some pretty good like advanced type content like we used to for BDO.
Cool. Potion, how about you, my man?
I had an album release this week. So it's out. You can find that on Spotify underneath the name Potion Shop with a space. So I'm happy that's out finally. I have another album in the works. Hopefully having that out before the end of the year. As far as me, my sleep schedule was kind of destroyed this week, and so I just been playing a crap ton of New World. I want to be streaming this next week, so you should be able to expect my streams throughout this following week, and we'll be back on pace. That's about it for me.
So for me, I'm just going to be streaming as much New World as humanly possible. I've got a weekend of debauchery, as I like to call it, where I have absolutely no responsibilities. So break out the whiskey and sit yourself down on a big fat chair, because it's back to back 12-hour streams for me. So be sure to hang out and have a good one with me and make fun of all my mistakes and foibles along the way. So lots of New World. I have no intent of playing a different game in any time in the near future. Just a quick little piece of housekeeping. As soon as we close out this episode, we are going to be picking a new time and possibly frequency for the podcast. So stay tuned for that information. We'll put it out just as soon as we can kind of come to a conclusion. But on behalf of Kerr, Moreland TV, Potion Shop TV, I'm Tim Allen 1337. This was episode 54 of Nerds and Words, recorded live Friday at 3 p.m., maybe 3:30 p.m. Eastern. That was 12:30 p.m. Pacific. Once again, we'll be changing the time. We'll see how it goes. Stay tuned for more information. Thank you for listening, and we'll catch you next time.